जोरदार तालियों के साथ हम अतिथियों का स्वागत करेंगे। अतिथियों से निवेदन है कि कृपया आसन ग्रहण करें। जय मातरम। मैं भरत अमदापुरे विवेक विचार मंच की तरफ से आप सभी का हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं और मान्यवर अतिथियों से ये निवेदन करता हूं कि कृपया छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज जी के मूर्ति को पुष्पार्पण करें और कार्यक्रम का शुरुआत करें। जय महादेव। जय शिवाजी। जैसे कि हम सब जानते हैं, आज के हमारे इस परिसंवाद का विषय है फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच एंड एक्सप्रेशन और रिलीजियस फ्रीडम एंड माइनॉरिटिज्म। और इस विषय पर चर्चा करने के लिए, अपने विचार रखने के लिए हमारे बीच जो गणमान्य अतिथि उपस्थित है, उनका आप सबको भली भांति परिचय है। फिर भी मैं औपचारिक रूप से उनका संक्षिप्त में परिचय करवाता हूं। हमारे बीच उपस्थित है श्रीमान आनंद जी रंगनाथन। जोरदार तालियों के साथ उनका स्वागत करें। आनंद जी ने दिल्ली के सेंट स्टीफन कॉलेज से बीएससी तक पढ़ाई की है। उसके बाद उन्होंने कैम्ब्रिज यूनिवर्सिटी यूके से बीए, एमए, पीएचडी और उसके बाद पोस्ट डॉक्टरेट की है। इंटरनेशनल सेंटर फॉर जेनेटिक इंजीनियरिंग एंड बायोटेक्नोलॉजी दिल्ली, यहाँ पे उन्होंने 16 साल तक काम किया है। साल 2015 से वे जेएनयू के स्पेशल सेंटर फॉर मॉलिक्यूलर मेडिसिन इस विभाग में कार्यरत है। साथ साथ वे स्वराज्य मैगजीन के लिए एज अ कंसल्टिंग एडिटर भी काम देखते हैं और उस मैगजीन में लिखते भी हैं। मैं भारत विकास परिषद के मंदार जी जोग इनसे निवेदन करता हूं कि कृपया आनंद जी का स्वागत करें, पुस्तक और गुच्छ देकर स्वागत करें। हमारे बीच जो दूसरे अतिथि उपस्थित है श्रीमान साई दीपक जी, उनका जोरदार तालियों के साथ स्वागत करें। साई दीपक जी अभी दिल्ली उच्च न्यायालय और देश के सर्वोच्च न्यायालय में एज अ वकील प्रैक्टिस करते हैं। उन्होंने अन्ना यूनिवर्सिटी से मैकेनिकल इंजीनियरिंग में ग्रेजुएशन किया है। उसके बाद आईआईटी खड़गपुर से उन्होंने एलएलबी की है। सन 2016 में उन्होंने लॉ चैम्बर्स ऑफ जे साई दीपक इस संस्था की स्थापना की है। हम सब जानते हैं कि साई दीपक जी ने सर्वोच्च न्यायालय में कई महत्वपूर्ण केसेस में अपना योगदान दिया है। पिछले 1 साल के अंदर ही उनके 2 पुस्तकें प्रकाशित हो चुकी है। एक है इंडिया दैट इज़ भारत और दूसरी अभी अभी प्रकाशित हुई है, वो है इंडिया, भारत एंड पाकिस्तान। और विशेष बात यह है कि ये दोनों पुस्तकें अभी टॉप में चल रही है। मैं विवेक विचार मंच के अध्यक्ष प्रदीप दादा रावत इनसे निवेदन करता हूं कि कृपया साई दीपक जी का स्वागत करें। जो तीसरे मान्यवर है वे है प्रदीप दादा रावत। दादा वैसे अपने ही है, विवेक विचार मंच के अपने एज ए होस्ट ही है एक तरह से। दादा पुणे महानगर से सांसद रह चुके हैं। वे नेशनल शिपिंग बोर्ड के अध्यक्ष भी रह चुके हैं। वर्तमान में वे विविध संस्था संगठन का नेतृत्व करते हैं। दादा सांसद रह चुके हैं, लेकिन वो कोई टिपिकल पॉलिटिशियन नहीं है। दादा एक कार्यकर्ता भी है, नेता भी है, स्कॉलर भी है और कार्यकर्ताओं को मार्गदर्शन करने वाले एक नेतृत्व भी है। दादा भारत इतिहास संशोधक मंडल के अध्यक्ष है। अभी भांडारकर इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ ओरिएंटल रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट, इसके भी वे कार्यकारिणी के सदस्य है। साथ साथ वे स्वातंत्र्यवीर सावरकर अध्ययन केंद्र, इसके भी अध्यक्ष है। मैं नीलेश जी धायरकर इनसे निवेदन करता हूं कि कृपया दादा का स्वागत करें। और एक जो विशेष अतिथि हमारे बीच उपस्थित है, हम सब उनसे परिचित है, शेफाली ताई वैद्य, उनका स्वागत करें। शेफाली ताई वैद्य पुणे स्थित एक चतुरस्र लेखिका है। मंदिर स्थापत्य हो, भारतीय वस्त्रकला हो, प्रवास वर्णन हो, राजनीति, इतिहास, ऐसे विभिन्न विषयों पर शेफाली ताई लेखन करती है। सोशल मीडिया में हम सब शेफाली ताई को अच्छी से जानते हैं। उनके करीब करीब 1 मिलियन फॉलोअर्स है और एक मुखर और निडर लेखक के तौर पर हम उनसे परिचित है। डंके की चोट पर अपनी बात रखती है। तो शेफाली ताई का स्वागत करने के लिए मैं विजय दरेकर जी से निवेदन करता हूँ। आज के हमारे इस कार्यक्रम की रूपरेखा कुछ ऐसी होगी। सर्वप्रथम विवेक विचार मंच के अध्यक्ष प्रदीप दादा कार्यक्रम की प्रस्तावना करेंगे। उसके बाद अपने मुख्य अतिथि साई दीपक जी और आनंद रंगनाथन जी अपने विचार रखेंगे। उसके बाद प्रश्नोत्तर और चर्चा का सत्र होगा जो शेफाली ताई मॉडरेट करेंगी। फिर अंत में दादा फिर से कार्यक्रम होने के बाद वे फॉरवर्ड बताएंगे और सामूहिक राष्ट्रगान से कार्यक्रम का समापन होगा। मैं अभी ज़्यादा समय न लेते हुए प्रदीप दादा रावत इनसे निवेदन करता हूं कि कृपया कार्यक्रम का प्रास्ताविक करें और इस कार्यक्रम का आयोजन करने के पीछे जो भूमिका रही है वो स्पष्ट करें। धन्यवाद।
I welcome on behalf of Vivek Vichar Manch and Bharat Vikas Parishad, Professor Anand Rangnathan and Advocate J. Sai Deepak to the land of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. The savior of Hindu India. Our tryst with destiny did not start at the stroke of midnight on 14th August 1947. इसमें ताली बजाने का कुछ नहीं है. I'm talking about a tragic event. It started in the late 7th century when Hindu Baluchistan was Islamized. Our ancestors have fought against Islamization for 1000 years. Shivaji Maharaj and his successors were victorious and subjugated the central Islamic power. The rise of Maratha century ensured that Hindus are no more kafirs and dimitutes in their own motherland. No religious tax like jizya or kharaj, no temple destructions, no dishonoring of our women, no cow slaughter, no katle-aam, no forced conversions, no slavery. The Marathas and Sikhs succeeded in uprooting the political foundations of Islam. But Islam is basically a religious ideology, unlike fascism, Nazism, or communism. Intolerance is intrinsic to its religious doctrine. Islam forbids peaceful coexistence with non-Muslims. Therefore, Muslim Bharat parted ways with Hindu Bharat in 1947. Parity in Akhanda Bharat or partition of Muslim majority areas were the only options available for Hindu India. If we had accepted the constitutional scheme for Akhanda Bharat, we would have become another Lebanon. Jinnah used to call himself a peacemaker. Name of Zakir Naik's TV channel is peace. One of the meanings of Islam is peace. A famous American pistol is named Peacemaker. So this peace is what we call Smashan Shantata. I am talking about tolerance. In the United Nations, the representative of Israel once asked the Muslim nations, "Where are your Jews?" It is time to ask Pakistan and Bangladesh, "Where are your Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Sikhs, all non-Muslim minorities?" This is, I think, the core issue about our freedom of expression and religion is intolerance and tolerance. As you know, Mahatma Gandhi visited Muhammad Ali Jinnah and held talks for almost 14 days. And during that talk, once he asked Gandhiji, give me a minute. I find no parallel in history for a body of converts and their descendants claiming to be a nation apart from the parent stock, wrote Gandhi to Jinnah on 15 September. If India was one nation before the advent of Islam, it must remain one in spite of the change of faith of a very large body of our children. You seem to have introduced a new taste of nationhood. If I accept it, I would have to subscribe to many more claims and face an insoluble problem. I call this as Gandhi's riddle, or broadly speaking, Hindu riddle. Because we fail to understand the nature of Islam. When Prophet Muhammad was asked, "Where is your father?" he replied, "He is in hell." Once he had a fleeting desire to pray for his mother. Allah forbade him to do so because she died before even Islam was born. His uncle Abu Talib, who had protected him, but he refused to accept Islam. So when he died, his disciples asked, "Where is Abu Talib?" He said, "He is in hell." The next question is about what happened to pre-Islamic Arab civilization. It was totally, utterly destroyed. Basically, the Arabs had temples, they had gods. So idolatry was the part of Arab civilization. So Muhammad destroyed all the idols in Mecca, in Arabia. So they cut the umbilical cord with their pre-Islamic civilization, which they called as the age of darkness. They don't have a concept of motherland. It is about Ummah, the Muslim Brotherhood. And what Gandhiji was asking him was, yes, you have changed your way of worship, but we have common ancestry, common civilization, common motherland. So these concepts do not work with Islam. The way forward was to accept the verdict of history, as Dr. Ambedkar said. And I will quote a quotation which Ambedkar has given in Thoughts on Pakistan. Irish nationalist leader Michael O. Flanagan, this is Ambedkar is quoting, "National and geographic boundaries scarcely ever coincide. Geography would make one nation of Spain and Portugal. History has made two of them. Geography did its best to make one nation of Norway and Sweden. History has succeeded in making two of them. Geography has scarcely anything to say to the number of nations upon the North American continent. History has done the whole thing. If a man were to try to construct a political map of Europe out of its physical map, he would find himself groping in the dark. Geography has worked hard to make one nation out of Ireland. History has worked against it. The island of Ireland and the national unity of Ireland simply do not coincide. In the last analysis, the test of nationality is the wish of people." So, Baba Sahib is telling us, let us accept the verdict. It was not propounded by Hindus. It was the fact, the two-nation theory. So let us accept that and part our ways. That's the only way forward. Now, I come to the basic topic. These articles, they have been enshrined in the Constitution. According to me, these articles is a mandate to defend a tolerant society. And now I will quote Karl Popper, which is called as the paradox of tolerance. Unlimited tolerance must lead to the disappearance of tolerance. If we extend unlimited tolerance even to those who are intolerant, if we are not prepared to defend a tolerant society against the onslaught of the intolerant, then the tolerant will be destroyed. Then the tolerant will be destroyed and tolerance with them. In this formulation, I do not imply, for instance, that we should always suppress the utterance of intolerant philosophies. As long as we can counter them by rational argument and keep them in check by public opinion, suppression would certainly be unwise. But we should claim the right to suppress them, if necessary, even by force, for it may easily turn out that they are not prepared to meet us on the level of rational argument, but begin by denouncing all argument. They may forbid their followers to listen to rational argument because it is deceptive, and teach them to answer arguments by the use of their fists or pistols. That's what we have been seeing. We should therefore claim, in the name of tolerance, the right not to tolerate the intolerant. As far as tolerance, it is in the DNA of our Indic civilization. I think that with this opening remarks, I will end my talk. Thank you.
धन्यवाद दादा। दादा के विचार सुनने के बाद मेरे मन में एक विचार आया कि अगर हमारा भारत तो एक प्राचीन राष्ट्र है ही, लेकिन आधुनिक परिप्रेक्ष्य में अगर किसी एक व्यक्ति को हमें राष्ट्रपिता कहना है तो हम वो केवल छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज को कह सकते हैं। इसके बाद हमारे सामने जो विचार रखने जा रहे हैं वे है श्रीमान आनंद रंगनाथन जी। मैं आनंद जी से निवेदन करता हूं कि कृपया अपने विचार रखें।
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really am more than overjoyed, really humbled by the praise of so many people, including Dada, who I wish was my real relative. He has so many books that he showed today on our wondrous store of Bhandarkar Institute. Thousands of books donated by Dada alone, that I was telling him that nowadays there is this culture of ED raids on ministers. So were ED to raid him, what would they find? The officers would be telling each other, sir, ये क्या मिल रहा है? वहाँ तो पता नहीं क्या क्या मिल रहा था, और यहाँ पे तो सिर्फ किताबें रखी। Then I told him कि he is the richest politician you can think of. And as Dada said, welcomed us to Pune, the land of Chhatrapati Shivaji. Can I also tell him that, of course, he is held in great regards by all Indians, especially Maharashtrians. But we Tamilians also owe a very special debt of gratitude to Chhatrapati Shivaji. And the reason for that is that once news reached Chhatrapati Shivaji that a temple at Thiruvannamalai in Tamil Nadu had been destroyed and a mosque built over it. Shivaji personally went to Thiruvannamalai, destroyed the mosque, rebuilt the Shiva temple. Let me translate from the original first-person account of this by a Frenchman in the book Indies and Stories from Karnataka. After having restored the fortress at Ginji, King Shivaji went to Thiruvannamalai. He was a devotee of Shiva. Muslims had converted the temple there into a mosque. Shivaji destroyed these two mosques, restored the pagoda of Shivan, and built a staircase around the mandapam of 1,000 pillars with the bricks that came from the demolition of the mosques. In the mandapam, and I'm quoting directly, he brought from Maharashtra 100,000 cows for the installation of the Shivalingam and performed the consecration ceremony. It is he who instituted the festival named Kartik Deepam on the hill. So, thank you. Coming swiftly to the topic at hand, because we have other illustrious speakers after me. There has already been one before me. When I told my wife that I'm going to Maharashtra to talk on freedom of speech and expression, she said, "Baal mat katwa ke aa jana." So I said, "नहीं, वहाँ तो government बदल गई है." Yesterday I was walking around the hotel and I saw a salon and I actually got a... Those who've seen me day before yesterday would realize that I've had a haircut, but this suspiciously looks like a Shiv Sena haircut, so I'm not... बहुत ज़्यादा नज़दीकी से चला दिया, I don't know. If I was in Delhi, I would not have paid a tip to the barber, but यहाँ पे I was... But coming back to the topic, which is freedom of speech and expression, religious freedom and minoritism. So all of you know my stand by now. I've been not praised that much for it, but pilloried for it. I've been trolled for it. But I have stood with my stand ever since I came into the public eye, started writing articles and espousing my thoughts on freedom of speech and expression. So I am what I call a free speech absolutist. But let me give you the definition of free speech absolutism. बहुत लोगों को ये लगता है कि absolute free speech का मतलब है कुछ भी मन में आए कह दो. नहीं नहीं, अगर वो होता तो मैं politician होता. There are 4 caveats जो कि free speech absolutism को डिफाई करते हैं, एक्सेप्शंस हैं. नंबर 1 है कि आप अपने स्टेट सीक्रेट्स किसी को नहीं बता सकते फ्री स्पीच के उस पर. कल कोई पाकिस्तानी स्पाई आ जाए या कोई इंडियन जर्नलिस्ट आ जाए जो कि पाकिस्तान के लिए काम करता हो, यू कांट... In the name of free speech, I cannot disclose the name of that journalist, so please don't. So I cannot disclose the state secrets, obviously. That's a commonsensical, logical exception to free speech absolutism. The other one is that in an auditorium full of people, you cannot, in the name of free speech, shout fire. You can't do that because that will cause physical harm, that will cause a stampede. So that is another commonsensical exception to my free speech absolutism. The third is, in the name of free speech, you cannot lead a mob to instigate violence with immediate violent repercussions. You can't do that because then you're leading to physical harm. And the fourth is, you can't, with details, call someone corrupt or slander him, because that then goes into the domain of not free speech but defamation laws, and you could be sued for it. But उसमें भी मैं अपनी तरफ से कि people can call me corrupt. So, you can, because corruption has a moral or an ethical attribute to it. What is corruption? उस पे लोग thesis लिख सकते हैं. So the point is, someone can say, look, he is morally or ethically corrupt. Now, that is not, according to me, much of a problem for me, but nobody can come and tell me that I took $600,000 from Adani, because that is slandering my reputation. Or I took some money from Ambani or something, because then I will sue that person. So with details, you cannot slander a person. That is not free speech. So with these 4 exceptions, everything else is kosher. Everything else, according to me, should be allowed. And as Dada already said, that without exception, without even blinking an eyelid, I can say that ours is a civilization that has been the most tolerant, that has upheld freedom of speech and expression for almost everyone. And yes, true, Dada has suffered for it. So it is a fact that we are, most of us still are free speech absolutists with these 4 exceptions. Now, why am I a free speech absolutist? So going forward, I will not say that read the fine print with an asterisk that these are the 4 exceptions. It is given from now on that when I say I'm a free speech absolutist, they carry these 4 exceptions with it. The reason for that is that I don't want to be the one to decide what has offended me and what has not. And I don't want anyone else to decide of what I have said, what has offended him or her. Because that is an area of gray. Who am I to say that I am offended by what you've said, or you are offended by what I say? That is subjective. That is subject to what my frame of thinking is. And if I decide, or a judge decides, or a society decides, that is carrying on extending that subjectivity to the logical conclusion, given these laws, that the person who uttered those will be thrown in jail. Now, do I espouse the grey? If I do, then yes, I love these laws that curtail my freedom. And before I venture a little bit further, let me quote verbatim, because we have an astonishing lawyer sitting in our midst, and I don't want to make any mistakes, because as it is, defeating Sai in a debate is impossible. उसके बाद आप गलती भी कर दो तो चांस ही नहीं है. ये लेफ्टिस्ट को छोड़ के मेरे पीछे आ जाएगा, which I don't want. I want to keep him busy, thrashing those guys. So let me quote verbatim what these laws are, under which people in our country are arrested and thrown in jail day in and day out, tens of thousands in a year, based on these laws, based on the grey subjective interpretation of these laws, the offense taken through these laws. 124A, sedition. Whoever by words, either spoken or written, or by signs, or by visible representation, or otherwise, kuch bhi keh liya, grey, brings or attempts to bring into hatred or contempt. Just count the number of ors in here so you would realize what grey actually is. Or excites, or attempts to excite disaffection towards the government, not just India, government, established by law in India, wherein the said disaffection includes disloyalty and all feelings of enmity towards the government, shall be punished with imprisonment, which may extend to 3 years, to which fine may be added. This is the law. I put to you that 1.3 billion people, if they want, they can be put in jail by this. Itne ors hain aur isme itna kuch hai. Let me come to now the one most egregious one according to me, which is 295A, the so-called quote-unquote blasphemy law. I'm quoting the law. Whoever with deliberate and malicious intention, who is to gauge what is deliberate, what is not, of outraging the religious feelings of any class by words, either spoken or written, or by signs, or by visible representation, or otherwise, insults or attempts to insult the religion or the religious beliefs of that class, shall be punished with imprisonment of either description for a term which may extend to 3 years, or with fine, or with both. I hope you're counting the number of grays out here. Then the final one is 153. Whoever by words, either spoken or written, or by signs, or by visible representations or otherwise, I think this is the same guy who wrote 295A, possibly wrote this also. मैं कॉलेज तो नहीं था, I don't know. Promotes or attempts to promote on grounds of religion, race, place of birth, residence, language, caste or community, or any other ground whatsoever. ठोक दिया बीच में, कुछ भी. Disharmony or feelings of enmity, hatred or ill will between different religions, racial, language or regional groups or castes or communities, or commits any act which is prejudicial to the maintenance of harmony between different religions, racial, language or religion groups, or castes or communities, and which disturbs or is likely to disturb the public tranquility, and such activity for any reason whatsoever causes or is likely to cause fear or alarm or a feeling of insecurity amongst Darawa Musalman, insecurity amongst members of such religious, racial, language or regional group or caste or community, shall be punished with imprisonment, which may extend to 3 years, or with fine, or with both. I could rest my case right now, but since I have a few more minutes, let me carry on and tell you the absurdity of deciding that I am offended, of deciding that this is causing unrest, of deciding कि ये इससे insecurity फैल रही है, इसीलिए तुम अंदर जाओगे. Now I want, with this wonderful audience, a show of hands, if I may, on a few examples. Nupur Sharma quoted from the hadiths, 2 hadiths. I have reproduced those two very hadiths on Twitter. They are visible. They have 20,000 retweets or whatever it may be. My head is still satisfactorily attached to my torso, although I had a haircut yesterday. I don't know what... He cut off the wrong side of the head. Nupur Sharma quoted the hadiths. How many of you feel that she violated 153A, 295A and offended and made the Muslim community insecure? Please raise your hands. Not a single hand has been raised. And yet, uski to life barbad ho gayi. 9 states and their leaders are saying we wouldn't leave her. I don't want to quote Mamata Di. He actually said, we won't leave her. They want her. And she goes to Supreme Court so that those FIRs at multiple states, I don't know, 50 odd, are bunched into one. And you know, I will quote what the judges said. In fact, I should, so that it gives you an idea. This is what her life has become. Forget her life. 7 of those who just said their only crime was, I support Nupur Sharma, 3 of those have been beheaded and killed. That's it, just for supporting. None of you raised your hands. None of you thought that what she said offended in any way or caused disharmony in any way towards the Muslim community. Let me now give you another example. 21-year-old Sunny Gupta, he was an engineer in Maharashtra. With all what was happening, he posted a Facebook post in which he said, do not go to Ajmer Sharif Dargah. Hindus should not go to Ajmer Sharif Dargah. That was it. 295A was slapped on him. He was arrested. He was thrown in jail. Muslim community said, this has offended our religious sensibilities. This is causing disharmony and hate. He's spreading hate. 45 days he spent in the jail. 45 days. How many of you believe that it was justified to throw Sunny Gupta in jail? Not a single hand has gone up. And yet he was thrown in jail. In fact, it was a tragedy because he wasn't known to anyone like all of us are. He was just a 21-year-old engineer who expressed his point of view. Freedom of speech, so-called freedom of speech, that I don't want Hindus to go to... And you've seen what has happened from those Chishtis of Ajmer Sharif. 3 of them supported the beheading, called for a revolution, said, Hindustan hila denge hum. One of them met the killers of Kanhaiya Lal ji. Sunny Gupta says, do not go to Ajmer Sharif, to only Hindus. 45 days he spends in jail because of these laws. Mangelal Agarwal. हमें ये नाम पता भी नहीं है. I had to search to bring these names. No one knows these names. Mangelal Agarwal spent 25 days in jail. Chhattisgarh, Congress government. By the way, Sunny Gupta was in Maharashtra during Mr. Fadnavis's time, so it was a BJP government that threw him in jail. Mangelal Agarwal, 25 days in jail. Why? He criticized the power cut situation in Chhattisgarh. He was charged with sedition under the Congress government. 25 days he spent in jail. How many of you believe that he violated the freedom of speech and expression and he should have been thrown in jail under charges of sedition, causing disaffection against the government? Not a single hand has gone up. And yet these 3 laws exist that throw tens of thousands in jail. Dhaval Patel, final example. He criticized the COVID handling of a chief minister. He was thrown in jail for 15 days. He was the editor of a weekly in Gujarat, BJP ruled Gujarat. He was thrown in jail. How many of you believe that he should have been thrown in jail for talking about the COVID mishandling of a chief minister? Not a single hand has gone up. So when we have such well-informed and conscientious, morally and ethically upright audience, how is it, pardon me Dada, because I don't see you as a politician, how is it that those buffoons who are ruling us, actually ruling us, not governing, ruling us, are using these laws with impunity? Why? What is the reason? And I'll tell you the reason. And the reason is that the hate that some Islamists, they hate me, I know it, that's okay. I also enjoy it at times, that's fine. They also hate me more because I love Zakir Naik, bless him where he has. He opened my eyes. The other day there was a government that was saying that we must introduce Gita in schools. I said, no, introduce Quran. Understand Quran. So I know, but the hate that they have towards free speech absolutists is the same hate that they have against believers or atheists or apostates. There is a psychiatric term for it. It's called guilt of inadequacy. They feel embarrassed. They want to pretend that they are logical, they are rational. And yet when you ask them, and I ask them that, but you believe that the Prophet ascended to heaven on a winged horse, don't you? They hate it. They hate it when you tell that how can you believe that earth was created in 7 days, or that Adam and Eve or the first man and woman were built from black mud, or a woman from the rib of a man. They hate it when they're reminded of this. And that is why they hate free speech absolutely. It is not for nothing that Galileo had to apologize. It was out of fear. It was not because of upholding the religious sanctity. It offended the religious sensibilities because those people were afraid. And that is why those people call free speech absolutism as utopia. It is not utopia. I have told you the 4 exceptions. Barring those 4 exceptions, why is it utopia? Why am I not allowed to criticize any religion? Is that religion or any religion not a collection of ideas? How odd would it look if tomorrow many of you were to criticize the way a vaccine has been prepared against COVID? And I would say, let loose a police on you, and you have offended my scientific sensibilities. You dare not say that that vaccine has got anything wrong with it. How dare you? Don't you find that is odd? Now, the one aspect that I want to tell you is that I am in the same boat as all of us are. None of the hands went up. My also hand would never go up in arresting Sunny Gupta or Nupur Sharma or Mr. Agarwal for criticizing the power cut or Mr. Dhaval Patel. Never go up. But the fact of the matter is, because of these laws, tens of thousands are thrown in jail. Are they collateral damage? Are they collateral damage for us, for you? Barring this, leave alone the sanctity of whether 295A matters to Muslims or not, they're going to chop your heads anyway. The point of the matter is, out of 100 cases, 95 are not blasphemy cases. They are that some 16-year-old, as happened in Hubli in Karnataka, he photoshopped a saffron flag on top of a mosque. He's been arrested. God knows what will happen to him. His life has been destroyed. It will be destroyed. And it doesn't matter which class, caste, community you come from. So this so-called Jai Bhim, Jai Meem, in Bangalore, those riots occurred when Muslims thought a Dalit, who was the nephew of a Congress leader, had committed blasphemy. It doesn't matter. As Dada said, when Ummah strikes, Ummah strikes. Not the UMA Ummah, but Ummah, brotherhood. So, and one aspect what really hurts me is that we are talking about this in 2022, when we left it to our founding fathers to decide for us. When we were taking baby steps, we left it to the people like our Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru. Incidentally, when Dada talks of tryst with destiny, I disagree. I think it's messed with destiny. But the point is, he created an image of himself as if he's the paragon, the protector of freedom of speech, the most liberal politician you can find. When the truth was totally different. And I got to know of it only 3 or 4 years ago. I thought, yes, Indira Gandhi, she brought in the emergency. Rajiv Gandhi, he banned satanic verses. So yes, they were not upholders of freedom of speech and action. But yes, Chacha Nehru, of course he was. What are you talking about? बाद में पता चला कि सबसे ज्यादा कोट एंड कोट बदमाश तो ये थे, चाचा नेहरू. Even Rajiv Gandhi would go to him and say, Prabhu, let me narrate the instances in the next 2 or 3 minutes as to what he did, and we are suffering because of it. Let me give you the instances of how he treated freedom of speech and dissent. First Amendment was brought in with clauses of reasonable restrictions, incitement, disruption of public order, public decency. Now look at this public decency. He's leaving it to people to decide whether what is publicly decent or not, or indecent. So if tomorrow somebody finds that Naga Sadhu's exhibition is publicly indecent, Naga Sadhu should be thrown in jail. Is this what our civilization has come to now? Majru, the poet, was jailed for 1 year for calling Nehru Hitler ka chela. First democratically elected communist government in Kerala was dismissed. Stanley Wupert's book 9 Hours to Rama was banned. The book Chandramohini was banned. Aubrey Menem's The Ramayana was banned. Campbell's The Heart of India was banned. Koestler's The Lotus and the Robot was banned. Import of any newspaper that undermined friendly relations with foreign states was banned. Aziz Beg's Captive Kashmir was banned. Fleischler's Aisha was banned. Bertrand Russell's Unarmed Victory was banned. Robson's film 9 Hours to Rama was banned. Sardanvi's Marke Somnath was banned. Robert Taylor's The Dark Urge was banned. Selling Lady Chatelier's Lover was banned. The book What Has Religion Done for Mankind was banned. Rawatwant Bhupat Singh was banned. Import of any quote-unquote obscene drawing or painting was banned. Mrinal Sen's film Neel Akshar Niche was banned. Menon's Rama Retold was banned. Tony Hagen's book Nepal was banned. The RSS's organizer was censored. Its publishers prosecuted. Film Gokul Shankar was banned. Godse's testimony was banned. Goswami's film Runumi was banned. Historian Dharampal was jailed for criticizing Nehru post-Indochina war. Release of the 1962 war film Bhool Na Jana was blocked. President Rajendra Prasad's speech was barred from distribution. Film Jharna was banned. Draconian Press Objectionable Act was passed. Columnist Vivek was fired. His column critical of Nehru discontinued. HT editor Durga Das was fired. His column critical of the Nehru family discontinued. Congress leaders demanding Nehru's resignation were arrested and jailed. Ads to Times of India were discontinued for speaking against government policy. Magazine Crossroads was banned. Play Neil Galene Communistaki was banned. Its actors arrested. Hindi film songs were banned from being played on the All India radio. Congress demanded a ban on the iconic film Parasakthi. Film Nastik was banned. Western pop music was banned from the AIR. People's Theatre Association was banned. Play Harpita Master was banned. Film Ganga Jamuna was blocked. Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay's play Mahesh was banned. Tagore's play Gora was banned. Balraj Sahni's play Jadoo Ki Kursi was banned. Tagore's play Bisarjan was banned. Pradeep's film song was deleted. 2 songs from Fir Subah Hogi were banned. Harmonium was banned from the AIR. Film Jugnu was banned. Editor Prahlad Keshav Atre was jailed for writing a critical article. But hey, Nehru was liberal. Nehru protected freedom of speech and expression. The point I'm making, ladies and gentlemen, is, and I end here, is that if we leave it to the politicians, with the exception of Dada, they will ruin this country for us, as they have ruined this country ever since we became a republic. Because we have been a banana republic ever since we became a republic. That's the harsh fact. We cannot leave it to the politicians. It is for us, we, the people, to decide. And we must collectively decide that it is grey to decide amongst ourselves what is offensive and what is not. And therefore, I put to you that we must go for absolute freedom of expression with those 4 exceptions. Thank you very much.
धन्यवाद आनंद जी. आनंद जी को सुनने के बाद मुझे ये मन में आया कि हम ज़्यादा स्टेट के ऊपर निर्भर रहे अपने सिक्योरिटी को लेकर. उससे ही जुड़ा हुआ एक कोट है, वो मैं पढ़ता हूँ. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserves neither liberty nor safety. बेंजामिन फ्रैंकलिन का ये स्टेटमेंट है, तो ये हमें ध्यान में रखना चाहिए. और लिबरल कौन है और फैसिस्ट कौन है, इससे जुड़कर ही एक साई दीपक जी का ही एक स्पीच से मुझे एक स्टेटमेंट याद आता है कि हमारे देश में लिबरल किसको बोला जाता है, जो बोलते हैं कि हमारे देश में बहुत विविधता है, लेकिन वो बोलने के पीछे उनकी मंशा रहती है कि वो अलगाववाद को बढ़ावा देते हैं. और जो कहते हैं कि हमारे देश में बहुत सारी विविधताएं हैं, लेकिन हमें जोड़ने वाले कुछ कॉमन सूत्र है, उनको बोला जाता है आप फैसिस्ट हो. ये वाक्य मुझे हमेशा के लिए याद रहा है. तो हमारे जो अगले वक्ता है श्रीमान साई दीपक जी, मैं उनसे निवेदन करता हूं कि कृपया अपने विचार रखें. धन्यवाद.
Your phone? I think I have until 6:30. I'll try to make the most of it. Namaste. Thank you very much for turning in such huge numbers on a Saturday. And on the way, I was just saying this, and I'm not saying this for the public consumption, that the cultural capital, obviously, of the state has to be Pune for multiple reasons. And each time I've come here, regardless of the topic, the turnout has been fantastic. Bangalore, in that sense, is equally great. So I think somehow the renaissance of this particular country, or the civilization, is starting from the south of Indias for all practical purposes. It is believed that Manu came from the south of Indias, the much reviled Manu. I was wondering how to structure this session. So let me try and start with something. So the second book, and I'm not trying to sell the second book yet, the release is only on the 23rd of August, but there is something during the course of the writing of the second book that I realized. So Brihadaranyaka Upanishad has a particular quote which effectively speaks of the place of the Chaturvarnas within the Hindu fold or the Dharmic fold. Starts off by extolling the Kshatriya. And this is in the context of the Rajasuya Yajna. Effectively saying that it's the Kshatriya sword that enables the flourishing of Dharma. Because under him we are safe. As long as that sword is unsheathed, you're safe. But the person who ultimately eggs and encourages the Kshatriya to live by Dharma and to conduct that sacrifice is the Brahmana. And although the Kshatriya is the Yajamar of that particular sacrifice, he is doing so at the behest of the Brahmana. So anyone who strikes the Brahmana, and in that sense it refers to a particular class of enlightened individuals, not in the manner in which it is understood today. And if it provokes certain sentiments, so be it. This is my position. So, as far as the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is concerned, I could have quoted the Manusmriti, but because Manusmriti is reviled, I decided to switch the Upanishads. Because this is what the Upanishads say. That ultimately someone who strikes the Brahmana is bound to be punished and he will be reduced to the condition of Daridrya. Now, then it goes on to say how the cosmos was created. That the supreme consciousness, Brahman, effectively created, so there was a loud bang of sorts, and then emerged the universe. To protect the universe, the Kshatriya was created, and then to give him the concept of Dharma, the Brahmana was created, but then the universe, or let's say the supreme consciousness, still felt that kuch missing hai is equation mein. Now, as far as the Kshatriyas are concerned, who are the Kshatriyas according to this verse? Indra, Varuna, all these elements, all these deities. And then they realize that घर तो चलाना है, कैसे चलाएंगे? पैसा तो चाहिए. So, the Vaishyas among the gods were created. But then ultimately someone has to feed and nourish all these people. and who has to bear the responsibility of the society and to say, I'm here. You know which community was created after that? Utter the word. It's not wrong. Shudras. Don't be scared of it. The SC/ST Atrocities Act cannot come in the way. As a lawyer, I'm saying this. 100%. The word is Shudra. It is not a cuss word. It's an extremely proud word. Don't be afraid of it. It's on free speech, right? I'm exercising my free speech. And you know what is the position of earth in this verse? So the Shudra that is created for the nourishment of all the castes is Bhumi, which is called Pushana. From there comes the word Poshana and Poshit. Earth is treated as Shudra in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Now please tell me, which person in his right mind can attribute cheap qualities to the Shudra? I'm sorry, this is the position of the Vedas. The Manusmriti could not be treated as higher than the Vedas. And therefore, if at all the Manusmriti says something, it has to be consistent with the Vedas. Because Smritis are meant to be realistic and, let's call it, real-time expositions of the Vedas. So embrace this cactus. Because those who wish to exercise free speech cannot do so without the guts to embrace the truth. Period. Because if free speech is meant to be just comfortable speech, then I don't understand why do you need that speech in the first place. Who are you going to trouble? You're not going to trouble anyone. The reason that you need to protect free speech is to protect you from anybody's offended sentiments. Because he cannot cite his bloated ego or his sentiments as a reason to shut you up. That's the reason it needs to be protected. No, but then, after having created all these varnas, not caste, don't use the word caste, varna. After having created all the varnas, then Brahma asks himself, how do I ensure that all of them operate within a certain boundary? What if the Kshatriya chooses to become a tyrant because he is the one wielding the sword? What do you do then? Well, let me create an honor code, and that code is called Dharma. So the verse ends by saying that all of these people are kept in check by Dharma. Now, why is it Dharma? What is the etymology of Dharma? That which sustains is Dharma. Dharayati. That which sustains. So what does it sustain? It sustains what we believe is cosmic order as reflected in societal order. Period. Now, why is this important? It makes absolutely no sense to discuss either free speech or any other form of right independent of the end goal. A direction is meant towards a particular destination. So what is the destination that you are aiming for? What is it that the society is geared for? From there, you discuss the nitty-gritties and the nuts and bolts of free speech and expression. That would mean, in the context of present-day Bharat, I would ask myself, how do I determine the metes and bounds or the Lakshman Rekha of free speech, if at all there exists something? I'm a free speech absolutist, but not in the sense as Dr. Rangnathan, in a slightly different sense. One, I would want to be very, very clear about what is it that the free speech must protect. And I would want the metes and bounds of that free speech to be etched in the context of Bharat's peculiar historical experience. Which means equality, if applied blindly and mechanically in the context of Bharat, will result to the detriment and will lead to the detriment of the native faith systems. Because there can be no equality between the butcher and the goat. There can be no equality between the predator and the prey. Now, therefore, the provocative question that arises out of this position is, are you therefore propounding unequal rights for religious minorities? That would be the question. Now, let's unpack this a bit more. And therefore, the question would be, how does one define a minority? Why do you need the concept of a minority? should you choose to subscribe to the definition and the concept of minority, by definition, you are giving the rest of the state a particular religious identity or a national character. To say that because there is a majority, there is a minority. In which case, at the very least, have some shame and admit the Hindu nature of the society. Because you cannot ask for a treatment of minority as a minority while simultaneously denying the Hindu character of the society and the civilization. That can't work. Because then effectively you are asking for the cake and eating it too. You're saying, I will speak from both sides of the mouth and both are equally valid, which cannot happen. Why is this important? If today the position is that these are values which are universal, these are values that have been universalized, the concept of a national minority has come from Europe to protect national religious minorities. In the context of Christian states and in the context of states which are predominantly Christian and which have non-Christian populations. And therefore, those states have the luxury of proclaiming and chest-thumping the fact that they are indeed a Christian state. Nobody denies that character. And then they speak of how do we treat non-national minorities or non-national religious groups in this country. You want to adopt that particular framework and that particular paradigm as far as Bharat is concerned, and still want to say Bharat cannot have an identity of its own because that goes against its own definition and subscription to secularism. So should you want to discuss free speech and minorityism, it starts with the basic premise, which is what is the identity or the pehchan of this Rashtra? Start with that question first. Everything else is a secondary discussion. Because then मूल्यों की जो परिभाषा है या फिर उसका जो विश्लेषण है वो अमूर्त नहीं हो सकता है. It can never be in vacuum. It has to be in a context. Values must always be discussed in the context. So in the context of Bharat, it has to be defined by whose house is this, what is the position of others, and how do you draw the boundaries and how do you build fences, period. Start with that. Then let's go to the second question. The common belief appears to be that as far as Hindus are concerned or Dharmics or Sanatanis are concerned, we don't subscribe to the concept of blasphemy. Proof. Give me citation. Give me a precedent. What is this based on? What is the source? Is it our wishful thinking or do we know what we are talking about? What is the basis of this position? Sorry? Bhagavad Gita says what? The existence of a dialogue in a particular document is no proof of the fact that blasphemy is not subscribed to. Please, let's not confuse. दो लोग संवाद कर रहे हैं इसका मतलब ये नहीं है that blasphemy as a concept is not subscribed to. They are willing to engage in a dialogue and therefore there is no need for blasphemy as a concept there. Blasphemy as a concept becomes relevant when you and I have fundamental disagreements. Now, Gandhi wanted to basically say, भैया देखो प्रार्थना के तरीके में ही अंतर है. प्रार्थना के तरीके में अंतर नहीं है. प्रार्थना is superficial. सोच में अंतर है. Two-nation theory is not the product of difference in mode of worship, but it is a product of a fundamental distinction in your approach to the supreme consciousness. So when you try and reduce that fundamental philosophical, metaphysical, spiritual distinction to a mode of worship, I must ask you, बच्चे तुम किस स्कूल में पढ़ते हो और कौन से क्लास में पढ़ते हो? Two-nation theory did not arise because he chooses to do a sajda whereas you choose to do a namaste. No. It is because of the thought behind it. Now, in which case, if blasphemy is fundamentally a consequence of two people having such clear distinctions, how do you define the metes and bounds? Now, there are sources, as far as Hindu scripture is concerned, which can get as authentic as possible, where there are injunctions for three things: Go, Brahmana, and Devaninda. The killer of the cow. So Go Hatya, Brahma Hatya, and Devaninda. all three have severe consequences. Severe consequences. And I'm putting this to challenge. Confront me with an opposite source. And I'll give you the source from Atharva Veda. Maharaja Ranjit Singh, with the sword which had Shakti in it, went looking for killers of cows and butchered them. And butchered them. तो हम गो की रक्षा करेंगे लेकिन देवों को छोड़ देंगे. How does this even work? You'll protect the cow but not your devas and devatas. ये कैसा tolerance है? Revisit your notions of tolerance. Revisit the need for tolerance. Revisit the necessity for tolerance. And don't put yourself in a spot and tie yourself into such knots that you'll find it difficult to get out of that particular position when push comes to shove. And don't put yourself in this position merely because you want to show that you're better than the other guy. Why would you want to prove yourself to a brute who detests your existence? What audience are you catering to? And why do you need to cater to this audience? So the question would be, what has been our traditional position? Why don't we take a look at the injunctions? एक मिनट मनुस्मृति को छोड़ दो भाई, ठीक है, उसको छूते ही लोगों को तकलीफ होती है, छोड़ दो. अर्थशास्त्र क्या कहता है? When it comes to treatment of these people, or let's say blasphemers, why don't we read that? Surely Chanakya did not invent stuff. He was drawing from some source. What is that source? Now this would take us to a very, very sensitive territory. So are you therefore saying that your recrafting of Bharat as a civilizational state would mean that the concept of blasphemy is recognized even dharmically? Yes. And there's a good reason for this. You're telling me that as a global minority, the exercise of free speech lands in the same manner on you. As a community that has seen two successive waves of massive colonization, you're telling me that when the other guy cracks a joke, being a global majority who's capable of summoning the ummah from the outside of this country to press into service his position inside the country, you're telling me that the joke will land in the same way as you. So when swastika is slandered and bandied in the world, do you understand the consequences of Bharatiya staying outside? Anybody who's lived in the United States or has relatives in the United States, they'll tell you, people who wear the bindi are referred to as what? Red dots. Red dots. This is not a joke. Please understand that as on date, this civilization is on the cusp of an existential challenge. And therefore, at this stage, you do not have the luxury of indulging in tolerance. Dare I say this? Tolerance will come when there is peace. Today, you're not at peace. And the worst part is, you're not at peace because of the traitors you're producing and less because of the people from outside. Now, therefore, the question would be, if the blasphemer, so to speak, comes from within the community, what's your position going to be? Indulge. करने दो. बच्चे हैं. क्या फर्क पड़ता है? These are instrumentalities and tools in the hands of the other. That must be realized. So I am not presenting a solution. I am simply challenging existing preconceived notions on blasphemy and basically putting out the context in which perhaps you must revisit these notions. Now let's come to the other two issues. So one, blasphemy, my position is very simple. 295A is unfortunately, and I use the word unfortunately, a necessity, because you do not have a response to the street veto of the other side today. And you're not sure that the state is strong enough, virile enough to protect you. And even if it does protect, its protection translates to condolence in 2 lakhs. There is no protection before. Therefore, the one thing that can torment the other side is the law. वो भी छोड़ दें, बचा क्या? You want to enter the boxing ring with both hands tied and a smashed jaw? This is as real as it gets. The one thing that these beheadings have effectively told us is that according to him, this is not an academic discussion. वो संवाद के लिए तैयार नहीं हो रहा है. He is not getting ready for a dialogue. He is getting ready for a battlefield. And it's for you to decide. As Winston Churchill said, while the Hindu sharpens his argument, the other side sharpens his sword. Let's fight the sword with tolerance. That's our civilizational decision. Welcome to your own funeral, not your party. On sedition. Now let's come to sedition. Why was sedition introduced? To go after Gokhale? To go after Tilak? No. No. When section 124A was introduced in the Indian Penal Code, was there a provision to charge people who were waging war against the state? Any law students here? It's a pop quiz. हाथ खड़े किए और नीचे गए. The moment I said it's a pop quiz. भैया क्या है? Okay. Section 121 of the Penal Code as it existed then was used for waging war against the state. So when you had a provision, so this was waging war against the queen or the king, depending on who was wearing the crown. So if you had a provision which was meant to prosecute people who were waging war against the king or the queen, why did you need a section 124A? What does the history say on this particular subject? So here's what happened. Read my second book for this. The first two chapters of the first section significantly cover this along with the debates. Because the misconception is that, oh, ये तो हमारे स्वतंत्रता संग्राम को clamp down करने के लिए. No, that's not the history. They were going after the Wahhabi movement in this country. They were going after the Wahhabi movement in this country. How many people know when did the Wahhabi movement even take place in this country? Please read it. Syed Ahmad Barelvi died on the 6th of May 1831 in a place which will immediately give you a recall value, in Balakot. He was killed by Ranjit Singh's son, Sher Singh. From then on, Balakot has become a training ground because it's a shrine for jihadis. No wonder we went after Balakot after Pulwama. Because that's where they are indoctrinated and prepared. That's the memory of that community. Respect it. That's the long memory of that community. 1831 though is even relatively recent. They have a longer memory, therefore they are clearer about what they want. We are forgetful. We suffer from amnesia of all sorts. So what happened was to continue this jihad against first the British Empire, or rather the Sikh Empire and then the British Empire. People were being mobilized from all over Bharat, and money and preachers were being routed and funneled from Patna. What was the previous name of Patna? नहीं, इन दोनों के बीच में इसका एक नाम था, Azimabad. Okay, it goes from there to NWF, Northwest Frontier. So the British realized, इस preaching activity को कैसे रोकें, क्योंकि हमारे पास इसके लिए कोई provision नहीं है. Financial activity को कैसे रोकें, indoctrination को कैसे रोकें. Hence the or and or in the section. And therefore the catch-all provision of otherwise, because if you do something that is intended in this particular direction, which is not specifically provided for in the provision, I must still have an omnibus catch-all provision to come after you. And therefore the otherwise. That is how legal drafting happens. So when they did that, they decided to go after the activity thoroughly. Give the British man the courtesy of respect for being thorough. No wonder we are speaking in his language and wearing his clothes. He has done something right from his perspective. This was the thoroughness with which it was drafted. It is draconian for people who suffer, but जो राज कर रहा है उसके लिए तो ये draconian नहीं है. ये तो जरूरी है. उसने वही किया. So debates from 1863 right until 1913 will show this, that this was to go after the Wahhabi movement. Therefore, sedition as a provision is needed to go after all the activities that start from time T0 until बम फटे. क्योंकि बम फटने के लिए तो एक प्रोविजन है, यहां से बीच का जो रास्ता है उसको पकड़ना है. Therefore, sedition. I agree with Anand on a different aspect though. भाई अगर यही करना है, why do you have a provision in UAPA and in Penal Code IPC 124A? I'm with you. I am with you. You can't have two different provisions doing the same thing and going after the same thing. Makes no sense. I am with you. But sedition as a concept and the ability of the state to go after all of this must exist. That's the only way we will be safe. I agree that there is rife scope for abuse. So did the framers of the Constitution, not just the fathers, even the Pita and Mata of the Constitution, did they know what they were doing? Yes. Kulapati Munshi, K.T. Munshi, the one who is credited for Bharati Vidya Bhavan, specifically discussed this, saying, Indian courts shall interpret this provision in a manner which is consistent with existing jurisprudence. And by that time, that is by 1947, British courts had said criticism of the government is not sedition. By the way, British courts in Britain and their courts in India, both of them had said this. That's one of the reasons several of our leaders were let off the hook. So sedition, when it is interpreted today by any court, is always interpreted in the backdrop of this history. I agree that there are tremendous and horrendous exceptions, which is to say there is rampant scope for abuse. And there is a way of addressing it, to tighten the screws. There are many ways to do it. So the so-called Mothership England has also come out with practice directions कि किस situation में आप इसको employ करेंगे. Don't be trigger happy when it comes to sedition. I agree. And if someone is accused of sedition and his life is lost or his future is lost, what are the compensatory mechanisms? Think about that, no problem. But do bear in mind that you are a civilization under siege when you discuss this. You're not a United States that has a Canada on the top and the Mexico on the side and Atlantic Sea on both sides. You're not a Japan that is protected by United States. You're not an Israel which lives in the Middle East but still has the protection of the West. आपको बचाने के लिए कोई नहीं आएगा. You are on your own. So you might as well equip yourself for that loneliness. Therefore, my only humble request is whenever you discuss free speech, Samvidhan, and that word I hope is banned from public discourse, enshrined ko hatao. Every time someone talks of the Constitution, they have to use this word. It is enshrined in the Constitution. पता भी है इसका मतलब क्या है? Don't use it. It makes no sense. Don't simply parrot these lines just because someone else is doing it. It doesn't make you look intelligent or cool. And certainly doesn't make you look legally savvy. Because we don't use these words in court. 100%. We don't even touch it with a barge pole. नहीं छूना है भाई इसको. Makes no sense. Enshrined means इसके लिए एक मंदिर बना दिया. क्या बनाए सबको बताए. ये मंदिर है या कुछ और है हमको बताए. So therefore I'm saying, have these discussions with some context of history. Imagine now on the question of I just have 5 more minutes, I'll just take 5 more minutes. On the question of how do you go after, blasphemy, or how do you interpret it, what are the defenses, truth and all that, there is one more thing. जब ये पूरा controversy चल रहा था नुपुर शर्मा का, Hindus were at pains to say ये लिंग नहीं है, ये form of energy है, ये वो है, ये है. लिंग को लिंग नहीं मान सकते हैं आप लोग? Why are you so ashamed of your own culture? Why is it that you choose to actually pray to the ling? Because it is a representation of Raudra, of masculinity, of potency. You want to say it's not? Okay, how many people have been to Pashupatinath in Nepal? Okay. It's a mature audience, hopefully. If you've got under 18, it's not my fault. You knew what you were getting into. So please take responsibility. Okay? Now, in Pashupatinath Mandir, apart from the Moolagraha, so to speak, you go to the right, there is a specific Bhairav Roop there. People who want children are expected to do something there. Touch a particular organ and come out. You're worshipping the organ. It's surprising that Hindus are so easily ashamed of their own religion. Whereas he gets away literally with murder. Now when he was saying, so therefore, during this entire controversy, obviously the other side, that's exactly what provoked Nupur Sharma. That he made fun of it. And therefore she had to respond. So one of the factors that you consider in deciding blasphemy, so on and so forth, is this under duress, provocation, what? No, it's not as if she was waiting there to just shoot out this statement. नहीं था. ज्ञान वापी के संदर्भ में ये डिस्कशन चल रहा था, किसी ने वहां से ये टिप्पणी और व्यंग के बाण चलाए, उसने जवाब दिया. Right? So therefore, to that extent, she was not actively looking for controversy, so that is one of the mitigating factors in deciding blasphemy. Is she responsible for blasphemy? Second, does the content of the statement have any truth in it, or an element of truth in it? Which it is. I agree with Anand on that. Now, usually the other discussion that happens is, samajh lijiye, Krishna Leela, when it is read by a bhakta or the devout, is seen as a divine play. But the one who does not believe in it will make utter fun of it. When that fellow Neeraj in that movie with Salman Khan has this line, Krishna kare to ye leela hai, main karun to kuch aur hai, he says this. You know why we should have actually prosecuted that fellow for this? Because what is important is tone. Tone. कृष्ण लीला के बारे में जब बात होती है या भगवान के बारे में बात होती है, respect, because you're hurting our sentiments. That is the position. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm saying this is what the law says. Now, but then, question would be, Bhaiya, I don't even subscribe to your faith. Kahe ka respect? I don't subscribe to your faith at all. Plus, I wish to critique it because I feel either it's stupid or whatever it is. If that's the position of someone, I agree with Anand there. Otherwise, Charvaka should have been beheaded. Going by this logic. So, the concept or the discussion surrounding blasphemy is way more complex and requires a bit more of thought. For strategic reasons, I am saying retain the provision. Because आज आपके हाथ में उसके अलावा और कोई औजार नहीं है. So my position is not strictly academic, it is realistic. उसके पास तलवार है और मेरे पास कील है. कील तो है, जहां मारना है मारो. कील भी गया. So what will you do? जादू की झप्पी. My dear brother is Mahatma Gandhi's letter to Hitler. Hitler would have said, throw it in the dustbin. What a cloying nonsense this is. It's too sugary, I can't even handle this. It's like watching that movie Viva by the Barjatias. Unbelievable cloying nonsense. So therefore, bottom line, please get real. Hindus don't have the luxury of academic hair splitting. All of these discussions must be in the context of the beheadings. Thank you.
धन्यवाद साई दीपक जी. मित्रों, माइनॉरिटी मेजॉरिटी सेकुलरिज्म, इन सारे विषयों को लेकर सावरकर जी ने कहा है कि मेरे दृष्टि में सेकुलरिज्म क्या है कि माइनॉरिटी कम्युनिटी को कोई ऐसा राइट नहीं होगा जो मेजॉरिटी कम्युनिटी को नहीं है, और मेजॉरिटी कम्युनिटी को ऐसा एक भी राइट नहीं होगा जो माइनॉरिटी कम्युनिटी को नहीं है। साई दीपक जी ने ब्लास्फेमी के ऊपर चर्चा करते समय बहुत ही बेसिक मुद्दे पर जोर दिया है कि आप अगर कुछ बोलेंगे, ईश निंदा करें बोलते हैं उसे, डाइटीज़ के बारे में, उनके वे ऑफ वर्शिप के ऊपर कुछ बोलेंगे तो ब्लास्फेमी। लेकिन सबसे बेसिक मुद्दा उन्होंने उपस्थित किया है, इसके आगे जाकर आपका एग्जिस्टेंस ही ब्लास्फेमस हो जाएगा। इसके ऊपर सोचना बहुत ज़रूरी है। हमारा जो अगला सत्र है वो प्रश्नोत्तर का सत्र है जो शेफाली ताई मॉडरेट करेंगे। मैं शेफाली ताई से निवेदन करता हूं कि कृपया आगे का सत्र का संचालन करें।
Namaskar. It's a privilege to moderate this session, and also I'm a little scared because we have two such powerful speakers. I'm so glad to see such a packed hall today in Pune and on a Saturday afternoon. But I want to start by asking you all a question. It's good to see that so many of you are here and talking fearlessly on a topic about freedom of speech, minoritism, freedom of expression, whatever. My question is, today, in the 75th year of Indian independence, can we organize such a conference even today in Kashmir? Even after Article 370 has been abrogated? Forget Kashmir. महाराष्ट्र की बात करते हैं। क्या ऐसा प्रोग्राम, ऐसा ऑडियंस, इस तरह की खुल के बातें मालेगांव में हो सकती हैं, मुंब्रा में हो सकती हैं, और भी कई जगह हैं भारत में जिनके बारे में हम सब जानते हैं, लेकिन हम बोलते नहीं हैं उनकी डेमोग्राफी के बारे में। हम शांत रहते हैं, और हम जहाँ पे अभी के लिए हम जहाँ पे स्ट्रांग हैं वहाँ पे हम इकट्ठा होते हैं, एंड वी हैव दिस डिल्यूजनल सेंस ऑफ सिक्योरिटी दैट oh, here we can talk about freedom of speech. But is that what freedom of speech all about? Is it conditional? Do you have to look around and do you have to see कि हाँ, अब मुझे कोई पीछे छुरा लेके नहीं खड़ा है इसलिए मैं बात कर सकती हूँ फ्रीली? ऐसा नहीं होता ना। आपको अगर फ्रीली बात करनी है तो आपको कहीं पे भी फ्रीली बात करने का हक होना चाहिए। और आज हम बात कर रहे हैं, और मेरी पर्सनल स्टैंड है, I'm sure some people might disagree, is in line with what Sai Deepak said, particularly about 295A, that is the only thing Hindus have right now. And that is the only thing that we can use to protect ourselves from at least some of the demeaning, some of the derogatory things that other religions, and not just other religions, ideologies that are opposed to Hinduism have been saying for years. But before that, I want to start by asking Sai. We talk a lot about 295A, but I want you to give a little context about how 295A first came into being and how now it's being used. It's being used by Hindus far less than it's being used by Muslims actually. So not only do they have the sword, they also have the keel, and they use it far more effectively than we ever do. कमलेश तिवारी के अगेंस्ट पहले 295A के अंदर केसेस किए थे उन्होंने, वो जेल गए थे for over 100 days. Then when they came out, he was killed. Correct. तो दोनों होता है. But what we have is only the nail. But to come to the point, I want Sai to talk about how this whole thing came into being and talk about how Rangila Rasool and the whole controversy happened.
I have to sell my book now. So the final chapter of the book, India, Bharat and Pakistan, The Constitutional Journey of a Sandwich Civilization, is titled Malegaon, Malabar, Kohat and Gulbarga. Because Malegaon riots of 1924 during the Khilafat period has been discussed. Malabar because of the Mopla outage of 1921. My book is going to be launched on 23rd of August. On 21st of August 1921, is when the Mopla riot started. It was not a riot, it was called an outrage, even by going by British standards. I'll leave it, without revealing further, you should read it. Kohat I'll give as an example which is relevant to the situation here. By 1901, Kohat had a overwhelming, so Kohat is in northwest frontier, which is today Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Now, over 95% was Muslim, or 93% at least. So in September 1924, if my memory serves me right, around Janmashtami, in Kohat, which had a 93 versus 7 ratio between Muslims and Hindus, they come out with a derogatory poem, or let's say a publication on Krishna, on Janmashtami. So the Sanatan Dharm Sabha, the secretary of that particular organization, Jeevan Das, wrote a poem in response. And all hell broke loose. Because the entire community was under siege. तो अपने जान को बचाने के लिए पूरी कम्युनिटी क्या करती है? All the elders of the Hindu community of Kohat, they write a communal apology. माफ कर दो, हमें जीने दो. इस दौरान क्या होता है? The Muslims of Kohat drum up support from the border tribes, from the local Khilafat committees. आ जाओ. And by the night, Hindu shops and Sikh shops and Hindu places, they are torched. Hindus go on writing to the police. Help us, help us, help us, come. 2 din, Sarvanash. 2 days it just goes on. It's 93 versus 7. And this is the remote outpost of the British Indian territory. Already the presence of the British army and police is less. And you are surrounded effectively in what would be future Pakistan. So when this happens, finally the British government wakes up after getting an SOS call, rushes in the army and then says, Sabhi logon ko Rawalpindi cantonment leke jao. That's exactly how the Hindu and Sikh population was evacuated from Kohat. So much so that in 1924 Congress session, which was held in December in Belgaum, Gandhi is forced to recognize कि ऐसा हुआ है, and he holds the Muslims of Kohat responsible. And he tells the Hindus, don't go back until the Muslims invite you. मत जाओ बच्चे. Until the Muslims promise the safety of your lives, livelihood and property and dignity, don't go back. अभी तक वो यहीं पे हैं. Because Kohat ultimately became part of Pakistan. The population of Hindus today in Kohat is 0.01%. Overwhelmingly Muslim, 99 and something. These are real figures. I'm not even fibbing or faffing. Now, think of the Rangila Rasool episode. So, Khilafat ke time pe, all the Bollywood celebration on Hindu-Muslim unity is based on only 6 years of Indian history, 1916 to 1924. Because then the popular slogan was Hindu Musalman ki Jai. 6 saal mein gaya. That honeymoon didn't even last 6 years. Usually a marriage, at least the honeymoon phase is 7 years. Wo itna bhi nahi tha. 6 years, that's it. And after that, riots begin increasingly. Swami Shraddhanand of Arya Samaj is reconverting Muslims of Multan and those places back to the Hindu fold. Swami Shraddhanand was one of the vocal supporters of the Khilafat movement, by the way. Most people don't know this. And the other person who supported the Khilafat movement, the name is bound to shock you. The Shankaracharya of Sharda Peeth. Yes, he was arrested for supporting the Khilafat movement, and then he was released and acquitted. He shared space with the Ali brothers, Maulana Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali, supporting this movement vocally. Tilak supported Khilafat movement. And I have reproduced those documents. So then, when this happens, in order to provoke the Hindu community, they write a nasty piece of publication on Sita Ma. No different from a leader from Hyderabad today who was acquitted. 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 Why? Because the person who translated his speech from Urdu to English for the court's consumption did it on the basis of an audio recording of that particular speech. And the court says, आपने तो सुना है, देखा थोड़ी है speech को. Nobody controverts the fact that he actually delivered that speech. They're saying, you were not present, and when you translated, you did not see the video, you only saw the audio. Therefore, the translation by the head of department of the Urdu language studies, a Muslim herself, is rejected on this ground. Jai judiciary, Jai constitution. Now, therefore, ultimately, when they decide to write in response Rangila Rasool, it flares up. Riots flare up. And to somehow clamp down on that particular situation, the British tries to, let's say, broker peace between the parties, and the request, or the, let's say, the instruction that comes from Muslim communities, we need a Sharia compliant blasphemy law. And that is 295A. The publisher of Rangila Rasool, in true jihadi style, is killed on the corridors of the court while the court proceedings are still going on. इस संदर्भ में अपने आप से पूछिए, can we let go of 295A?
Coming to hello, coming to Anand, I'll take off from where Sai is left, saying that we need 295A, and I will ask you a straight question. Having known what Zubair had done, specifically you, having known what he did, how he dog whistled a violent mob, and how the whole Nupur Sharma thing basically snowballed for जब उसने बात की थी उसके बाद for 4-5 days nothing happened really. It's only when the edited version of this video was made viral and when other countries sort of interfered, that's when the controversy basically blew up, and that's when all hell broke loose, and that's when all this Sartan se Juda thing happened. So that Mohammad Zubair was arrested on under 295A among other things, and you put out a tweet saying that I support his freedom of expression. A lot of your fans also pilloried you for it, and I got a lot of questions today saying specifically, ask Anand, why did he support Mohammad Zubair?
या मुझे वो लोग सर तन से जुदा करेंगे इसका डर नहीं है, मुझे अपने ही लोग ना कर देंगे मुझे इसका डर नहीं. पर to answer your question, there was a misunderstanding, and I'll explain to you. I've explained it in I held the spaces where another one of our good friends, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, came in, and he kind of corrected me on many counts. Incidentally, he's right now blocked by Twitter for God knows what. कुछ ना कुछ करता रहता है वो. So when I said I stand with Zubair, it was obviously that I stand with his freedom of speech and not like I stand with him उसके पास जाके खड़ा कर दो, because obviously I don't like that guy. He slandered me, has abused me previously. But when I tweeted that was immediately after an ANI tweet that said he has been charged with 295A and arrested for his tweet on calling honeymoon hotel as Hanuman Hotel. That was, so the context was my standing with that. And if that was the case still, I would still stand with him, no matter what happens, because I am against anyone being offended, anyone being arrested for offending any religious sensibilities. But later on, as it transpired, as Abhijit told me, that he's not been arrested for that, he's been arrested for some other. In fact, I have one more tweet that still says, please don't hunt for that tweet and then start trolling me, that still says I stand with Zubair. Because in one of the cases, he was charged with 295A and arrested for saying someone was a hate monger. And my tweet still exists that this is preposterous. You can't arrest someone for simply saying this guy is a hate monger. If that was the case, then all of us would be arrested, because we've seen so many hate mongers in our lives and we keep accusing each other for. So that tweet still exists पता नहीं मैं क्यों बता रहा हूँ अपने बैल मुझे मार. But so that was the context of my standing with Zubair. I certainly don't stand for him for what he has done, and that Abhijit has clarified for all those things. That's
Okay,
the
thanks for that. Dada, I'll come to you and I'll ask you a question that is slightly deviating from the blasphemy and all these religious hurt religious feelings kind of thing. I want to ask you simply, is it a crime in most Indian states, and why is it a crime to criticize political leaders? The fact is, you can insult Lord Ram and Ma Sita and nothing happens to you, but you share a post about a certain political leader in Maharashtra and you get to spend 40 days in jail like Ketaki Chitra did.
Without naming him.
Without naming him, yes. And she shared somebody else's post. And I'm specifically talking about this because at that point of time, the current government was in opposition. And I'm sorry to say, not one leader from the BJP took her side publicly. And I have to say this because I was disappointed. I don't know what were the considerations. But here was a woman who was arrested on a Friday, sent to 41 days of police custody. Her laptop was seized. She was treated like she's a terrorist or a murderer. And even they get better rights in this country. And this Ketaki Chitra is not the only one. This keeps happening in multiple states actually. In West Bengal, many people got arrested. In Maharashtra, another guy got arrested for saying on his Facebook post, I just got to know, he just said, Saheb Gele. Kutle Saheb. कुठे गेले? He could simply be talking about his boss taking a flight and going to Chennai. How do you know Kutle Sahib? How do you know Kutte Gele?
Can I just interject with a joke here?
Yeah.
So I don't like Rahat Indori otherwise, but there's a very popular joke of his where apparently during the emergency, he ended up saying, Sarkar nikami hai, the police comes. आपने सरकार के खिलाफ ऐसे कैसे दिया? मैंने सरकार का है, मैंने भारत सरकार थोड़ी का है.
So Dada, I want to ask this question specifically to you. Leave aside blasphemy, leave aside hurt to religious sentiments for a bit. And I'm talking about the general freedom of expression that an ordinary citizen should enjoy under the Article 19A of the Constitution. Why is that not respected, basically? And what is it? You have been a lawmaker. I'm specifically asking you because you've been an MP. What is it that common citizens can do to guard, safeguard that right? And that question is open to both of you as well.
It's a very important question. Liberties which are given and these particular two laws, provisions from the British era. He is a lawyer. He can more specifically talk about it. But what I see is there is a contradiction between the two. The scope and limitation of free speech as defined under the articles and particularly provisions from these laws. My opinion is there is no excuse to have this kind of laws. We should take that risk. हिम्मत करें. अगर यही एक्सक्यूज हम देते रहेंगे कि उनके पास तो तलवार है, हमारे पास तो सिर्फ 295 है, 153 है, 124 है. अरे उनके पास तलवार है तो शिवाजी ने भी तलवार ही निकाली थी ना. तो बात यही है कि ये कंपेयर ही मत करो कि हमारे पास नहीं है. तो हमारे पास हर प्रकार की शक्ति होनी चाहिए. मैंने जो ओपनिंग स्पीच में कहा था कि इनटॉलरेंस को तो हमारे पास इस प्रकार की प्रोविजंस बनानी चाहिए. लेकिन ये जो जनरल प्रोविजन बन गई है कि विच इज मोर अब्यूज्ड इन द पॉलिटिकल फील्ड, और फिर उसमें कोई कांग्रेस वाला ही करता है, शिवसेना वाला ही करता है, बीजेपी वाला ही करता है, और जब कोई करता है तो ये चुप बैठता है. तो ये बात सही है कि वी हैव टू सीरियसली थिंक अबाउट इट कि जो फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन में बिलीव करते हैं, इन ये हर्ट फीलिंग, ये जो वोकिश आइडिया आई है, ऑफेंड हो रहे हैं हम। मैं तो एब्सोल्यूटिस्ट हूं, और जो 4 प्रमाण आपने दिए बस उतने ही हैं। क्या कमाल है, अगर हम जस्ट थिंक अबाउट इंडियन रेनेसां एंड रिफॉर्मेशन, कि अंग्रेज राज में एक प्रकार की इष्टापत्ति आई कि हमारे हिंदू समाज में इतना बड़ा प्रबोधन युग आया। मराठी में उसके लिए आगरकर जी ने एक सुंदर शब्द कहा है, विचार कलह। जैसे समुद्र मंथन होता है, तो हमारे समाज में इतना बड़ा मंथन हुआ, इतने नए नए मतांतर आए, नए नए धर्मपंथ की विचारधाराएं आई। अरे ये क्या बकवास प्रोविजंस है, इसमें से तो फिर अभी हमारे दयानंद सरस्वती तो पहले जेल में जाएंगे। सत्यार्थ प्रकाश क्यों, तो उन्होंने क्रिटिक ऑफ रिलीजन, ये हमारी जो इंडिक सिविलाइजेशन की परंपरा है, उसकी ताकत यह है कि शंकर के मंदिर के बाहर बैठकर चारवाक प्रवचन दे सकता है। मैं आज ये पहन के आया हूं बिल्कुल इसके लिए कि हमारे पास जैसा किसी धर्म को मानने का अधिकार है, उसको नाकारने का भी अधिकार है। और इसके लिए मैं एक हिंदू होने की जरूरत नहीं है। हिंदू समाज में तुम वैसे रह सकते हो, तो हमें हिम्मत रखनी चाहिए। हम क्यों इससे सेंसिटिव बन रहे हैं? 2-3 बातें देखो। हमारे देश में शांतता प्रस्थापित करनी है तो सबसे इजी मार्ग है हम सब मुसलमान बन जाए। उससे एक अच्छी बात हो जाएगी कि कुछ लोगों के दिल में वो अखंड भारत है ना, तो फिर तुर्कस्तान से लेके मलेशिया तक एक बड़ा अखंड भारत बन जाएगा। दूसरा मार्ग है जो हमारे पुरखों ने चुना है, जो प्रतिहार चालुक्य से लेके 8th सेंचुरी से लेके, जो हमारे काबुल झाबुल के हमारे जो पुरोक्त थे 250 साल लड़ते रहे, कश्मीर 14th सेंचुरी तक लड़ता रहा, विजयनगर हमारे आंध्र के रेड्डी 100 साल। तो ये सिविलाइजेशन, इसलिए मैंने शुरुआत ही यहां से की थी कि हम पहले ये सोचे कि हमारी को व्हाट इज द रियल थ्रेट, और अगर हमने ऐसा कर, इफ वी डू दैट, व्हाट वी आर डूइंग इज कि मैंने जैसा कहा दयानंद जी जाएंगे, विवेकानंद जी ने भी बहुत ही कठोर टीका की है ऑन आवर वेरियस सोशल प्रैक्टिसेस, योगी अरविंद जी ने की है, हमारे लोकमान्य तिलक भी जाएंगे। क्यों, तो उन्होंने भगवत गीता की नए दृष्टि से टीका लिखी, गीता रहस्य। तो वहीं के सनातनी लोग तो उनको इतनी गालियां दे रहे थे, पूना के लोग, तो वो भी जाएंगे अंदर। अभी आपने मनुस्मृति की बात की, मैंने कल ही मनुस्मृति स्त्रियां, सावरकर जी का लेख है कि स्त्रियों के बारे में मनुस्मृति में क्या लिखा है, तो वो तो कभी जेल के बाहर आएंगे ही नहीं। कमाल की बात है। हम इस डर से, सिर्फ ये मुसलमान क्या कर रहे हैं और इस्लाम की दृष्टि क्या है, तो हमारे देश में ब्लास्फेमी एक्ट नहीं चाहिए। इस देश में ईशन निंदा का कायदा नहीं चल सकता है, ये डिफेक्टो इंटरप्रिटेशन हो गया है उसका। इट इज नॉट मेंट फॉर ब्लास्फेमी। तो ये हमने सीरियसली विचार करने की जरूरत है, बिल्कुल, कि हम एक आत्मनिर्भर समाज बने, हम अपने प्रबोधन को लेकर चले, वी विल चेंज फॉर बेटर, वो हमारी हक है, हम हमारे परिवर्तन के लिए करें। नहीं तो क्या होगा, ये अगर इस प्रकार से चला तो हम धर्म की चिकित्सा नहीं कर सकते, धर्म चिकित्सा नहीं करेंगे तो प्रबोधन कहां से होगा, हम इतिहास लेखन नहीं कर सकेंगे। टू राइट हिस्ट्री वी हैव टू राइट अबाउट द फैक्ट्स, तो हम वो कुछ भी नहीं कर सकते। तो हमने सोचना पड़ेगा कि फॉर पेटी गेन्स वी लूज द सोल ऑफ इंडिक सिविलाइजेशन।
I think Sai really wants to say something on this.
I'm not going to allow him to go before me. I'm going to snatch his mic. Thank you. I'm going to take 5 minutes and 30 seconds extra over that. With your permission, Shefali. First of all, can I say that I've always said I am a nota voter. But if at all I have to vote for someone, I'll vote for Dada. But problem is he's not a politician. Kare to kare kya? Wah Modi ji wah. But you know, I don't want to enter into a debate with Sai. You know, in the olden times, this used to be the Tark Vitark, and if you lose, you would be converted. So I don't want to stand that risk. I don't want to be converted into a Muslim, because there's one thing that is problematic during the process of conversion, which I... And if I elaborate that one thing, jail mein jaunga sabse pehle, so I don't want to. But can I, so please, whatever I say, this is not in trying to be one-upmanship. This is impossible to beat Sai. That is a known fact. That is an axiom, as we say in science. But a few points I had made, Sai, when you were giving your brilliant disposition. So I just want to make a few points. When you said that the Muslims, after the Rangila Rasool, they wanted 295, you're wrong. It was actually our own Mahatma Gandhi who wanted it. He has written a letter in which he's demanded that law. I've printed that as a thing. And incidentally, let me also quote our great Mahatma, and I'll always, like I say, great Zakir Naik, great Mahatma Gandhi is also this thing. This is great Mahatma Gandhi's appeal to Britons on the eve of the Battle of Britain and the Nazi invasion. Quote, "Fight Nazism without arms. Invite Herr Hitler to take possession of your island. If he refuses to give a free passage out, allow yourself, man, woman and child, to be slaughtered. That will bring peace." Unquote. Gandhi's views on the Holocaust and what the Jews should have done. Quote, and this is in 1946, when he knew the Holocaust had happened. It is not in the 1930s when there was very little knowledge of Holocaust filtering in. Quote, "Disarm Hitler by praying to him. Jews should have offered themselves to the butcher's knife, thrown themselves into the sea from cliffs. As it is, they succumbed anyway in their millions." This is the man who's, and if you think he only commented on Jews, no he didn't. This is, I'm quoting verbatim, this is from the volume, 100 volumes of Mahatma Gandhi, his collection of his writings. "Hindus should not harbor anger in their hearts against Muslims, even if the latter wanted to destroy them. Even if the Muslims want to kill us all, we should face death bravely. If they established their rule after killing all Hindus, we would be ushering in a new world by sacrificing our lives. None should fear death." ये हैं अपने महात्मा गांधी. तो अब मैं क्या बोलूं, but swiftly coming to Sai, a few points that I would like to make. Sir, one thing you also have to be very careful now, because Supreme Court has adjudicated that you cannot abuse and insult Mahatma Gandhi. There is a judgment. That is the reason why I'm always saying Mahatma in front of Gandhi and peace be upon him after Prophet Muhammad. But to bring forward this point, slight point of not disagreement, a debate with Sai, and it has already been elaborated by Dada. There is a huge sect in Hinduism. In fact, they vote for BJP. Karnataka has won because of the Lingayat votes. Lingayats don't believe in the Vedas. So Lingayats, if you believe that there is an instance of blasphemy in the Vedas and we must go back to that, then Lingayats would be the biggest blasphemers. And, like Charvak example was given by Dada. That was point number one. Point number two, the most important thing, and that is the reason why I took the show of hands. I wanted you to picture Sunny Gupta, Nupur Sharma as your family member, as your son, daughter, brother, sister. You don't want him to go to jail. None of you raised your hand, so you can't change your views now. You didn't want Sunny Gupta to go to jail just because he said Hindus do not go to Ajmer Sharif. But the point is, if there is a law, it will be used by the other side as well. It cannot only be used by the Hindus. And as you freely admitted, the point is, Nupur is under trouble with this law for merely quoting the hadiths. It is so bizarre. As Dada said, because of this law, har koi andar jayega. Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, anyone. Because who is to decide who has offended what? So we would be collateral. Are you willing to have tens of thousands of Hindus as collateral for your 5 instances where we need this nail, as you said, to hit the other side that has a sword? If you are willing to do that, that is your decision, but I am not. Because Sunny Gupta is like my brother. Nupur is my sister. I know her personally. And not just her whole family is suffering. She's cried on the phone when she's talked to me. So that second point. Third one was, this was a very important point that I wanted to bring out, is that if we don't have this comfort for us to be critical of religion, that I believe is an idea, then what you're doing for your fight, for which I am sympathetic for, because yes, it is a civilizational battle. It's not just my brother Sai who's saying it. Tagore said it 120 years ago. He said there are only 2 religions who are intent upon destroying every other religion in the world, and they are Christianity and Islam. So Sai is not saying something that is new and you should blame him for it. This is a civilizational battle. But if you want 295A, because the proof exists in front of you that Nupur merely quoted hadiths and she is in a problem because of 295A, you are not allowing Hindus to be critical of a massive religion that wants you destroyed. I cannot read their verses. I cannot be critical of their verses. Do you not want me to read what the other person thinks of me, a kafir? This law will prevent me from it, as it is going to prevent millions of others like Nupur for merely quoting. She didn't even criticize those hadiths. She didn't criticize Aisha, SWA. She didn't criticize Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. She just quoted those hadiths. So what you're doing with this law, you are preventing not only scholarly studies, you are preventing academic studies, criticism of religion. That is what you're preventing. And that is wrong. Because what you're then saying is that I, with perfectly capable mental capabilities, will not be allowed to be critical of an idea. It could be a bizarre idea, good idea, bad idea. I will not be allowed because of this law. I think that is wrong. And lastly, I do agree partly with Jay Sai when he talks about we have to put a frame. Just 30 seconds, as I said, wrong promise. Yes, we have to put a frame. But it's not what he believes. I'm going one up on that. He's saying we have to go to Vedas, we have to set the right for our civilization. Yes, I'm telling you, we are already a Hindu Rashtra. And I'm telling you what is happening in Hindu Rashtras. Hindus are 4th-class citizens in Hindu Rashtra. So if Hindu Rashtra wasn't there, we possibly wouldn't be 4th-class citizens. ये समझाओ लोगों को. वो 4 पहले मैंने first I said we are 3rd-class citizens. In a week I had to apologize. Live on air I said I'm sorry, we are not 3rd-class citizens. We are 4th-class citizens. Because examples kept pouring in. Which other country, middle income economy, forget about it. You have 7 lakh Hindu refugees in their own land. How can it be a Hindu Rashtra where 7 lakh Hindus cannot go to their home but 40,000 Rohingyas can be transported there? Is this Hindu Rashtra? Which Hindu Rashtra has your places of worship act that you cannot reclaim your own temples, hundreds and thousands of them? Because of this place of worship act, you cannot change anything before what happened before 15th August 1947. There are so many examples like that. So I think, yes, I agree with Sai. We have to accept, more than Muslims and Christians accepting, Hindus have to accept that, yes, Hindu Rashtra would be milder than our constitution. At least Hindu Rashtra mein kam se kam there is a scope of Hindus controlling their temples. Our constitution doesn't have that scope. 113,000, no one knows it more than Sai. 113,000 temples are under control of the government. Government charges its administration fee of 21%, 13%, takes up 7,000, 8,000 crores every year. And then you have these journalists the gall to say कि हम 2 लाख का हेलीकॉप्टर हायर कर रहे हैं कि कावड़ियों पे हम गुलाब के पत्ते फेंक रहे हैं.
आनंद, ये 30 seconds are up.
I'm sorry, I apologize. But that's the thing. Hindu Rashtra would be milder than our constitution.
Go ahead, Sai.
Yeah.
Complete.
I think there's a fundamental confusion on what 295A does. And I'll explain why. How many people have read Ram Swarup's Understanding Islam Through Hadith? Okay. Has that been prescribed under 295A? No. So it was banned for a different reason, and the redacted portions are milder than the published portions. Okay. The World of Fatwas by Arun Shori. Has that been banned under 295A? No. Okay. Have any of Ambedkar's writings which are derogatory to Rama and Krishna been banned so far? No. Okay. Arun Shori's the missionaries in India, has that been banned? No. Satyarth Prakash, has it been banned so far? No. If not 295A, there are provisions for derogatory publications and obscene publications. Okay. Osho's writings with respect to Hinduism could offend a few sentiments. Has 295A been invoked in that regard? No. One of the statements that was made was, Lingayats don't believe in Vedas and therefore they could attract 295A. One point, just one point. Blasphemy is not the same as apostasy. Apostasy is not conceived of in Hinduism. That's exactly why I gave the Charvak example, that they haven't been beheaded. Blasphemy is slightly different from apostasy. It's not the same as disbelief. That's one. Two, have you been prosecuted under 295A so far for all your tweets? Okay. Why is that?
What is he doing? He's taking the lamb to the slaughterhouse.
No, I'll explain why. I'll explain why. Because, what did I say? Truth is a defense to blasphemy. Truth is a defense to blasphemy, just as it is a defense to defamation. If you're backed by substance, which is exactly why you were constantly marshalling Sahih al-Bukhari in support of Nupur Sharma to say, prove her wrong. You have not, let's say, disputed the correctness of the factual nature of a statement. You have only taken umbrage to something else. So therefore, the point about 295A, I completely subscribe to the solution that you propose. One of the reasons that I have opened the book with a verse from the Veda that extols Kshatra and ends with a prayer to Ambike asking for the destruction of the enemies of Dharma, including Raktabija Rakshasas, which means from every drop comes out a Rakshas, is me asking for Kshatra to be awakened. But let's get real. पालघर साधु सबके सामने मारे गए, with the police watching. कुछ नहीं हुआ. How many beheadings have taken place? And the latest killing is in a BJP ruled state, in a place which is as saffron as it can get, Dakshin Kannada. What's your solution? हर घर में चाहिए शिवाजी, लेकिन अपने घर में नहीं. Therefore, I caveated my position by clearly saying this is not ideal, but it's a stopgap arrangement until the society finds its reed ki haddi and something else which I won't mention. So therefore the point is, in an ideal world, the response should have been swift. I'll stop it at that. whatever the response should have been swift. Economic, social, whatever. Has that happened? Okay. In light of that, I would want to use the existing levers, which are pain points, on the basis of one thing. The left and the Islamo-fascists on Twitter ran helter-skelter deleting their tweets the moment Nupur was being prosecuted. That's exactly what landed Zubair in trouble. The man was looking for a rock to hide under, deleting his tweets of the last 3 years. Naqvi, Saba Naqvi, basically said, if we go down this path, what will happen to free speech? Why? Because she had made fun of shriveling a week before. Because the fear of 295A was tormenting that woman sitting in South Delhi in Chhatarpur farms or Sainik farms.
Who's Saba Naqvi?
Thank you. Now you have to realize. So therefore the position is, there are 3 levels of people you're dealing with. The street. The street has never cared for 295A, it will never care for 295A. ठीक है? मान गए. बीच के जो लोग हैं, जो ट्रोलिंग करते रहते हैं, I mean, Twitter warriors, makes no difference. But the influencers sitting on the top, आप उन पे स्ट्रीट नहीं चला सकते हैं, क्योंकि उसके रिपरकशंस अलग होंगे, आप पे ठप्पा लग जाएगा हिंदू टेरर का. उनके खिलाफ आपके पास सिर्फ एक ही औजार है, the law. I am not a criminal law practitioner, therefore it's not a self-serving suggestion. Okay? The point I'm trying to make is don't conflate the levels of the problem with the levels of response. इस तरफ से जब ब्रह्मास्त्र निकलता है, उस तरफ से भी ब्रह्मास्त्र ही निकलेगा. And here you're looking at 3 degrees. So don't conflate your response with those who are vulnerable to legal prosecution to those who are immune from it and who don't care for it. Therefore, you need all 3 degrees of response. The day the Hindu society is in a position to say, ये यहाँ पे नहीं चलेगा, लॉ की भी जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. Because nobody will have the guts to do it with repercussions on friendships, with repercussions on careers, with repercussions on economic opportunities. Today, you're not in a position to sound the death knell. That is the status of your reality. In light of this, my position is conditional. The day the Hindu society revives its Kshatriya spirit and bows before Devi Shakti, I will say, remove this, इसकी अभी जरूरत नहीं है.
Fair enough. Dada, will you make your point quickly? Because I want to move to the next point. Will you make your point quickly?
Very quickly. बात ऐसी है कि ये जो अभी एग्जाम्पल्स दिए गए हैं, कश्मीर से लेके तो पालघर का, ये सब गवर्नमेंट के पास इतने अधिकार है, इतने पावर है कि इट कैन बी प्रिवेंटेड. अनफॉर्चुनेटली हमारी गवर्नमेंट्स में वो हिम्मत नहीं है. ये क्षात्र धर्म आधुनिक काल में ये तो सरकार का काम है, और सरकार के सामने हिंदू डिस्प्लेस्ड होते हैं, मारे जाते हैं, तो देयर आर प्रोविजंस ऑफ लॉ जिसके कठोर शासन होगा. अब इस सर तन से जुदा जो करने वाला वो नहीं, इस देश में जो हर मुल्ला मौलवी या जो कोई फैनेटिक आदमी बोला होगा, तो दैट एवरी पर्सन शुड बी प्रोसिक्यूटेड. नहीं तो इसके लिए किसने हाथ बांधे हैं? ये जो कुछ बात हो रही ना कि एक ही, आई विल जस्ट फिनिश इट. स्टॉकहोम सिंड्रोम आप इंटरनेट पे पढ़िए. ये पूरी हिंदू सोसाइटी को हुआ है 1000 साल मार खाने के कारण. जैसे राजपूतों को लगता था अभी उनकी बेटियां वो मुगल वाले तो ले जाने वाले हैं, तो ये कहेंगे कि हम तो उनके रिश्तेदार हैं मुगलों के, टू फील दैट काइंड ऑफ, वो तो उठा के लेके गए हैं तुम्हारी बेटियां। तो दिस काइंड ऑफ आइडिया, जैसे कि अभी महात्मा जी के बारे में जो आप, कि पूरी जो हिंदू मेंटालिटी को रिप्रेजेंट करता है, तो हमारे पास सरकार है, डी फैक्टो इस देश में हिंदू राष्ट्र है फॉर ऑल प्रैक्टिकल पर्पसेस। हमको कोई कानून यानी कि ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के फ्रेमवर्क के बाहर जाने की जरूरत नहीं है। वी कैन एनफोर्स एंड सेंड अ मैसेज।
But then 295A is also a part of the same constitutional framework, no? So I come to this, even if Hindus file cases against 295A, hate speech as defined by the 267th report of the Law Commission of India is an incitement to hatred primarily against a group of persons defined in terms of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religious beliefs and the like. But in reality, if you see, and this brings me to a question which a lot of people have been asking, is that basically the courts have a very selective way of interpreting it. So the courts basically decide कि क्या hate speech है, क्या hate speech नहीं है, वो उनका power है. But now we get into the field of judicial activism, where the judiciary's role nowadays is increasingly becoming like they are not merely interpreting the laws and the constitution, but they are acting as a conscience of what they think is society, and therefore they will pass these value judgments about what is right and what is wrong, and the same laws are interpreted differently for different people, like we have seen in the case of Nupur Sharma and like we have seen in the case of Mohammad Zubair. And I will go back, and this is not even the highest levels of judiciary. I'm going to give you certain examples because we forget. That's our, unfortunate, that's our civilizational, I would say, fault. In case of, in Chhattisgarh, some time ago, a Hindu girl was actually told by the magistrate to distribute Qurans because she had posted something that was considered to be derogatory to Muslims, and they had filed a 295 case against her. So instead of giving her relief, the court actually told her to distribute Qurans, one. And today there has been one video that's gone massively viral. It's a judge from High Court, Indore High Court. He is talking about a case where where the respondents are saying that there is a Muslim girl who is converted to Hinduism after marriage. He is saying, why did she convert to Hinduism? The boy should call a Qazi and convert to Islam. This is a sitting judge. First I thought it was a scene from some movie, but it isn't, unfortunately. It is a reality. So my point is, how do we as common citizenry tackle judicial activism and do something about a body that is not elected, that cannot be sacked, that basically decides their own promotions and salaries, and they have zero accountability?
I think जैसे ही बीजेपी मेजॉरिटी में आएगी गवर्नमेंट में, तब आई थिंक विल बी सॉल्व. मेजॉरिटी में आने तो दो. But one, can I just correct you very slightly on this before you answer this question, is when you talked about, when I was saying that, 295A is stifling academic, scholarly, maybe even, I don't want to sound very pretentious when I say that, anybody should be able to criticize any religion. Why just scholars and academics? And when you said, when you cited some examples, I can cite you tens of examples where people actually have been arrested for that. I mean, Calcutta Quran petition is one very famous example where S.R. Goel was on the run, 10 people were arrested, there were riots, everything, and the book was banned, and the government came out really hard on it. And that was one of the most scholarly and academic criticisms of Islam.
Right. When you ask for the ban of a book which is believed in by the believers, their only recourse is to say, how can we then live without it? Now, this is where I think, I'll just come back to your question. See, I think there's a fantastic journalist from Kashmir by the name Arshia Malik. I'm sure you're aware of her. So she and I have running conversations on, she's one of those people who is inward looking despite being a Muslim and is looking at how to address the situation. And recently I had the opportunity to participate in a discussion where they said there is reform possible and moderates are possible in the community. I said, look, here's the basic thing. If the fundamental position is this and no other, and my way or the highway, and ये आपका cornerstone है, इसमें reform की क्या गुंजाइश है मेरे को समझ में नहीं आ रहा है. to reform that particular position would be to give up that particular position, which is the fundamental basis of the faith. So the only way to reform is to outgrow that particular identity. That's exactly what she told me, that this is the exact trouble that we face. Saying, if I were to challenge this particular position, then what? I'm no longer a Muslim. There ends the matter. Then you become an ex-Muslim. Right?
So, punishment for becoming an ex-Muslim, apostasy is death.
Correct. And hopefully, once
Jaye
Bharat
to jaye
becomes a
kahan.
Sharia state, wo bhi ho jayega. So, therefore, the point is, this is one thing that we have to seriously consider. Now, the reason I'm pointing out this particular discussion is the one thing that I have always agreed with Anand on, and this is not an olive branch, this is a genuine statement, is when he clearly says, what's your favorite line about the fundamentals? Snare and spare.
I feel like a rock star. No, snare the fundamentalists, but spare the fundamentals.
Now, therefore, this is the catch-22 whenever you're looking for reform from the community. And I would say, what we don't get about the psyche or the training that they're put through is the fear of hell is real in their heads. Because as children, they are taught to believe and be scared of Jahannam. And the fear of that. So when you're telling me, itne gutsy hain, they can produce suicide bombers, you don't realize that he's living in that parallel universe simultaneously. And therefore, once he has had that, he is genuinely believing that this is a pit stop to that final station. And
there are many suicide bombers who wear those guards, groin guards.
exactly.
Yes.
No. Please take that seriously, because therefore, he's so clear that he's actually going to reap the benefit of it once he goes there. Whether it's a raisin or a woman, we don't know. Now the point I'm trying to make is, when this is the real fear that you have been brought up with since your childhood, literally you're dealing with an enraged child which is stuck in that psychosis, and you're saying, get out of it. This is the task at your hands. लेकिन हमने ठेका नहीं ले रखा है कि हम अपने गर्दन कटवाएंगे इस process में. Right? So this is something that we are not willing to pay the price for it. Why should we pay the price for it after having paid the price for all these centuries and millennia? No, we are not. Now, in light of this, I am therefore going to put myself in the shoes of someone. There's a fantastic line in Munich, which Daniel Craig issues as one of the Mossad agents. It's a very parochial line. It tells you the psyche of the Jewish community after the Holocaust. The only blood that matters to me is Jewish blood, is a statement. He's very clear about that. And therefore, you're forced to, there's no other option for you to start looking like this and start protecting yourself. I'm not saying therefore Abrahamize Hinduism, but I'm saying that at least be clear that you are the one under siege you need to protect. Now, answering the question of Shefali ji, 1. 2014 effectively according to me, marks a serious change in our thinking patterns. At the political level, at the cultural level, at the societal level. A Tanaji would not have been possible, a Bahubali would not have been possible, an RRR would not have been possible, a Kashmir Files would not have been possible. This is notwithstanding my laundry list of criticisms of the BJP at the center. I am not a party loyalist, I am a dharma loyalist. And therefore, I preserve my independence by not being formally associated with any organization. Anybody who gets the job done will get my vote, period. I will not limit the scope or basket of my options to any particular option, because ठीक है, अगर किसी और ने 370 कर दिया होता, हम ना कहते, नहीं आप कैसे कर सकते हैं, ये इस पे तो इनका ठेका है, करेंगे नहीं ना, that's it. Issue is nobody else wanted to do it, they did it. Therefore, hands up, thumbs up, I'm with you. No problem. However, the reason for this sandarbh is the pattern of thinking is also changing in other organizations and other organs. You're fighting against an investment of not 70 years, ma'am, 270 years. Because they're taking forward the legacy of the British. So that's exactly why in the first book I said, आज की जो प्रॉब्लम है उसकी जड़ 70 साल पहले नहीं है, 270 साल पहले है. So you're fighting with an investment of 270 years. Therefore, I had to introduce the concept of coloniality to say, to understand why was English chosen for this constitution, you have to understand this. 1885, when the Congress was not an organization, by the way, it was a conference. It was a platform. The very first requirement that was sent out is, English-speaking people from across the country are invited for the participation in the Congress. I've given this with extract in the book. So why are you surprised that the Constitution is written in English? Okay? Therefore, today I think you will encounter a certain degree of disappointment from the judiciary for the foreseeable future. Thoda time lagega. Law is always slow to catch up because the famous statement that's made in England, the fount of our law, is that law is an ass. Okay? And therefore, it will take some time. And since it's going to take some time, when the society starts saying, not happening, not done, you're telling me that the society's reactions to the observations made with respect to Nupur Sharma's statements have not gone back? The feedback has not gone back? Look at it. So, thoda time to lagega. But it also means that you need to push more and more people who subscribe to this particular point of view. Obviously, these are not people who have been airdropped, although they may think so. भगवान ने थोड़ी भेजा है, राइट? तो आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट कहाँ पे है? Now let's go to the next step. इन्वेस्टमेंट अगर चाहिए आपको उसमें, the salary of a Supreme Court judge is not comparable to a third year or a fourth year law practitioner. If you're doing well for yourself and you're even average as a lawyer, you'll make much better than a Supreme Court judge. What's your incentive to give up everything and go and sit on the bench? There can be only two reasons: power, legacy. I leave the third option open. Okay? So where is the investment going to come from? Now I'll come to my answer. What the other communities have done brilliantly. Churches in Delhi hold conferences annually to groom young lawyers to enter the system. They identify them. I know this firsthand. Before I started opening my mouth on the subject, I did my research on all of this. They do this. Now, कितने मंदिर ऐसे हैं जो ये कर सकते हैं? ना वो क्यों नहीं कर सकते हैं? उसका जवाब आनंद ने दे दिया. Because the community takes care of your livelihood and other aspects so that you can focus on advancing the cause of the community once you're inside the system. Do you have that support system today? No. Despite my disagreements with Ambedkar, the one thing that he said is that Hindus are individuals, the rest are communities.
See, I don't mind the law being an ass. Problem is nowadays a lot of lawyers are asses. That is. No, absolutely.
And this can be extended to
He's a
lordships. This can be extended to lordships.
I already have a contempt case against me, so
No,
Dada.
I say boldly, because the very important issue is about the judicial outreach. I am very worried. The BJP government has a massive political mandate. Civilization also, the democratic mandate as per our democratic system. But see, it started with NJAC, that is the National Judicial Appointment Commission, unanimously passed by the parliament, and the judiciary throws it out. I wish the government had called for a joint parliamentary session and again send it. There is no other country in the world where the judges appoint themselves. And this is a judicial innovation. It has no basis in our constitution. It's unconstitutional. Yet we have done nothing. It's a very dangerous signal. Next, CAA. The rules are not framed. इतना तमाशा चला शाहीन बाग का, राइट्स हुए, गवर्नमेंट ने क्या किया वो और एक बात है, जजेस ने क्या किया, रूल कुछ है ना कि वो रोड पे नहीं बैठ सकते, दूसरे को परेशान नहीं कर सकते, देयर आर लॉज, दे डिड नॉट इंटरवेन, कुछ नहीं किया. एनआरसी की तो सिर्फ बात की थी अमित शाह ने, उसके बाद वो भूल गए बात करने का. क्यों? तो अगर सीए नहीं हो रहा तो एनआरसी नहीं, क्या मजाक है? और एक आगे की बात, फार्म लॉज, जैसे कि टैंक्स लेके ट्रैक्टर लेके घुस रहे हैं, रिपब्लिक उखाड़ रहे हैं, क्या कर रहा है गवर्नमेंट? मैं सिर्फ जुडिशरी को नहीं बता रहा हूं कि व्हाट इज हैपनिंग, व्हाट अ पुशबैक, कि ये इस देश में जो लेफ्ट लिबरल इकोसिस्टम है, इसमें हमारी ब्यूरोक्रेसी और जुडिशरी भी है, सबका दिमाग में कुछ भी गड़बड़ है। अभी मैं आपको एक बात बताता हूं कि अगर हमको कोई मुस्लिम लॉ में चेंज करना है, ये कौन सा डेंजरस डॉक्ट्रिन है कि वो कुरान में है कि नहीं हम देखेंगे। ट्रिपल तलाक एक दम में देना है, अच्छा कुरान में है कि नहीं है? रविशंकर प्रसाद भी बोलेगा नहीं कुरान में नहीं, इसलिए हम ला रहे हैं। वो जजेस भी बोल रहे हैं ये कुरान में है कि नहीं है। वो हिजाब कुरान में, अरे कुरान पुराण का बात नहीं है, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की बात है। इस देश में सीधी बात है कि आज भी जो देश के स्वातंत्र के पहले जो भूमिका थी कि हम कितने भी कम हो, we will have a parity with Hindus. That dangerous doctrine continues. There is a communal veto on everything. और ये इसके लिए हिम्मत चाहिए, बाकी और कुछ नहीं चाहिए। हमारे इस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के आधार पे ही हम ये कर सकते हैं। और एक बात मुझे बतानी है कि one day we will have to ask the Muslim community कि इस देश में जो भी सिविल सोसाइटी है, इसका रेगुलेशन ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के आधार पे चलना है या आपको मंजूर है या आपके दृष्टि से मदीना करार है। दिस इज देयर अप्रोच। जो कुछ मैं जानता हूं तो अकॉर्डिंग टू देम दे आर बिडिंग देयर टाइम। दिस इज मदीना करार फॉर देम। और मदीना करार करते वक्त भी वो क्या कर रहे हैं कि हमको टच नहीं करना है किसी भी हालत में। तो इस प्रकार से नहीं चलेगा। नो कम्युनल वेटो कैन बी अलाउड इन अ डेमोक्रेटिक सोसाइटी। और जुडिशरी में भी ये हिम्मत आनी चाहिए। और दिस इज अभी तो एक टाइम था इंदिरा गांधी के टाइम पे कि जब एग्जीक्यूटिव ये हुआ था, लेकिन ऑलवेज रिमेंबर आवर पार्लियामेंट इज द कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली। वो लॉ बना सकते हैं, सुप्रीम कोर्ट लॉ नहीं बना सकता।
Which brings me to the next question. All of us are in agreement on one thing. While there may be differences about whether we still need 295A or not, there the opinion is, I think, almost 50% divided. But yes, I am, very much. But we are all united on one thing, which is we need to invoke the Kshatra Tej again in Hindus. Hindus need to get together and recognize the existential threat to their existence, and they need to understand the exclusivist nature of the other faiths. Which brings me to the question, how do we bring awareness among Hindus? We are the only gullible people who actually believe in that massive lie called all religions are equal. No other religion tells their children that. Only Hindus tell their children that. And the second question to this is, how does even Hindu leadership, and this is a question for all three of you, how does even Hindu leadership, the top leadership, still fall prey to this false binary between Allah ka Islam and Mullah ka Islam? How can Hindu leadership say कि हाँ औरंगजेब बुरा था, लेकिन वो औरंगजेब बुरा था, वो जो डॉक्ट्राइन फॉलो कर रहा था वो बुरा नहीं है, उसको समझ में नहीं आया इस्लाम क्या है, लेकिन वो बुरा था। तो औरंगजेब को इस्लाम हमसे कम समझता है? Is that what Hindu leadership is saying?
I think that's a fantastic question. And as I said, I mean, of course I said it in jest, कि जैसे ही मेजॉरिटी वाली गवर्नमेंट आएगी वैसे ही ये काम शुरू हो जाएगा. बट द पॉइंट इज, शेफ, हिंदूज, व्हेन यू से यू हैव टू स्टार्ट, व्हेन कैन वी फ्रैंकली टॉक अबाउट Hindus gaining Shastra, what was the word that you used?
Kshatra Tej.
Right, Kshatra Tej. I think the Hindus gave that right to a government not once but twice with a majority. And I firmly believe that the monopoly of violence has to rest with the state. Otherwise, there will be a civil war. There cannot be guns distribution amongst this thing. We will turn into a macabre land like America is. But I'll tell you what also needs to happen. This government needs to wake up. On the first day when it was elected in 2014, it should have made arrangements, Israel-like arrangements for the 7 lakh Kashmiri Pandits to go and take back their home. That sends a message. When Nupur is threatened with beheading from the top of mosque by hundreds of thousands of people pouring onto the streets, this government has to say, what has she done except quote from the hadiths? That sends a message. You do not send a message by ignoring what is happening on the ground. You send a message that, look, you do some hanky-panky and we are going to be after you, just like Dada said. Everything is in the constitution. Every provision to act just but act strong is in the constitution, is provided for. When you don't use it, don't blame it on the Hindu population that have voted the government twice over. You have to blame the government for not acting. It is like Narasimha Rao said, to not take a decision is also to take a decision. Usi mein lage hue ki nahi decision nahi lenge. And there are so many examples like that. Dada recounted 4 of them. You have a majority, yet you repeal all those laws. You have a majority, yet you go back on your word. When you constantly do that, at not only the political level, at the society level, when you are quiet about what has happened to the Palghar sadhus, as you mentioned, when Mr. Modi, and today they have dug out his tweet, where he talked about the killing. He condemned the killing of BJP Karyakartas. Only once he's done it in 8 years, and those were 3 Muslim BJP Karyakartas. So a lot of BJP supporters are very justifiably very angry. That Shefali mentioned what has happened in Karnataka in BJYM. When you don't do that, these are simple steps. You're not even going out and asking for a extra cess. वो भी दे देंगे, you know, सब जगह cess दे रहे हैं, वो भी दे देंगे. But do what you're elected for. Zero appeasement and bring justice. That is all you're asking. Not for street violence, not for taking law into your own hands, not for anything else, but dispense justice.
I think there is a fundamental misreading of the mandate by the government. I don't think it's been voted for development. It's been voted for protection. And I say this not because I come from an affluent family, I don't. I've climbed up the hard way like any other middle class family of the 90s of Bharat, which has lived through the license permit Raj. But the point is, despite the license permit Raj, this society was able to create wealth. And once the fetters were removed, we ran, because we have always been fantastic at generating wealth. So we are not looking at the government for creation of wealth, but for circumstances which ensure that we have the ability to pursue the dream and which protects that investment, as opposed to creating a bullet train only to be brought down by stone pelters. Now, therefore, my position is that something happens the moment someone goes to power. They become centrists. And this is something that I've captured excellently, even if I say so myself, ki the moment power comes to your hand, what happens? Sub. Karo, okay, sub. How can a government be partisan? I don't have a problem. You can still deliver the mandate and still take others along, but by keeping your priorities clear. वहाँ से तो वोट आना ही नहीं है. I've said this any number of times. You can be fundamentally mercenary and ruthless and cynical about your political calculations, but even politically it doesn't make sense, because you're not going to get anything from there. And with changing demographic balance in the coming years and decades, you are going to be a dispensable rag. And people from Hyderabad will take over. From the old city of
Normally, I would never, interrupt someone as erudite as Sai, but I must, because I want to buttress the point that he made, that the mandate has to be protection. And I'll tell you, please go and watch this video in the aftermath or in the wake of the Jahangirpuri recent riots in Delhi. There's an NDTV video, please watch it before they take it down. They are asking those Hindus on the streets, and you know what they're saying? बिजली ले लो हमसे, हमें बिजली मुफ्त नहीं चाहिए, हमें पानी नहीं चाहिए, हमें योगी दो, ये बचाओ हमारा. हम फ्री पानी और फ्री बिजली का क्या करेंगे? हम घर से बाहर नहीं निकल सकते, हमारे घर पे सब वार हो रहा है. हमें तो that is, you need law and order before you need all the other amenities. You're absolutely right.
So my only suggestion would be that at least आप विश्वगुरु के जो सपने हैं अभी के लिए रख दीजिए साइड में. कतार से तो आपका निपटना नहीं होता है. I've supported the government's position with respect to China. Brilliant. You've built infrastructure there. Finally, you've done that. So this is not an attempt to bring down the good work that they've done. But the job here is not to constantly clap when you do something right, but also to say more is expected of you, because unfortunately, we are lagging behind others when it comes to protection. So fortunately or unfortunately, you're the only hope that we have. We can't see anybody else on the horizon. So please don't take advantage of that and don't take us for granted.
Dada.
I agree that it is the duty of the state, and the state has that kind of power to protect people. शेफाली जी जो अलग प्रश्न पूछा है बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है. ये जो अल्लाह का इस्लाम और मुल्ला का इस्लाम है ना, ये तकिया है, डिसेप्शन है. हाँ, वो एक मुल्ला ने कहा है कि इस्लाम ये अक्ल की बात नहीं है, नकल की बात है. हाँ, अभी मैं एक हिस्ट्री का एग्जाम्पल आपको देता हूँ. पूरे 1000 साल में इस देश में इतने इस्लामी शासक हुए, जो आपने कहा ना कि रिफॉर्म नहीं तो कोई कुछ नहीं कर सकता है, तो सब ने ये सब चीज़ें किए. दे हैड द रिलीजियस टैक्सेस, जीजिया है, खराज है, टेम्पल डिस्ट्रक्शन है, ये सब कॉमन. जैसे मैंने पहले लिस्ट जो बताई, स्त्रियों के साथ किस प्रकार का बर्ताव क्या है, पूरे इतिहास में सब लोगों ने गुलाम करके बेचा है, कत्ले आम की है, धर्मांतर की है. अब इसमें 3.5 लोग का एक्सेप्शन है. एक कश्मीर में जैनुल अबादीन करके, तो उसने हिंदुओं के साथ बहुत अच्छा बर्ताव किया. वो हिंदुओं के तीर्थ क्षेत्र पे भी जाता था. उन्होंने हिंदुओं को कह दिया कि हमारे लोगों ने जो आपको मुसलमान बनाया, आप वापस हिंदू हो जाओ. दूसरा उदाहरण है उत्तरकालीन अकबर. तीसरा है इब्राहिम आदिल शाह बीजापुर का. वो तो सरस्वती और गणपति की स्मरण से ही पत्र लिखता था. और मैंने 3.5 कहा कि तो दारा शिको सुल्तान बन नहीं सका. अब ये 3.5 लोग, ये इस्लाम का मानवतावादी चेहरा है क्या? नहीं, ये इस्लाम से दूर गए, दूर चले गए. दे वर अंडर द इन्फ्लुएंस ऑफ हिंदुइज्म एंड जैनिज्म. देयर इज एविडेंस, हिस्टोरिकल एविडेंस. वो दे आर नॉट द ह्यूमैनिटेरियन फेस ऑफ इस्लाम. के तो इस्लाम को ह्यूमैनिटेरियन फेस ही नहीं है. अब दूसरी बात, औरंगजेब की इतनी सही बात है कि औरंगजेब उसका व्यक्तिगत क्रौर्य नहीं है. वो जिस धर्म से जुड़ा हुआ है, उस धर्म को उस प्रामाणिक रीति से विथ ऑनेस्टी इज ट्राइंग टू इम्प्लीमेंट इट. तो वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट. ये इसलिए क्या होता है कि हम घूम फिर के जाते हैं इधर से उधर से. हम जो एलिफेंट इन द रूम है ना, उसको छोड़ देते हैं और ये चलते रहता है कि उनका डीएनए और हमारा डीएनए एक है. वो अभी कोविड का वायरस है, उसका भी अपना डीएनए एक है. हाँ, तो बायोलॉजिकल डीएनए का नहीं बात है, एक कल्चरल डीएनए की बात है, सिविलाइजेशनल डीएनए की बात है. एंड इसीलिए हमको हमारा हिंदू डीएनए को बचाना पड़ेगा बाय ऑल मीन्स.
Which brings me to the last question, and this is a question, I'm sorry, I can't take questions from the audience because समय नहीं है उतना, लेकिन आपने जो भी questions भेजे, 200 से ऊपर questions से, and I tell you that I faithfully went through each one of them, and I've combined them into subjects, and this is a last question that I want to ask before I would ask Dada to talk about the way forward, and this is something that I need all three of the guests to speak about. It is basically, we are saying what can and this is a question asked by many of you, what can a common Hindu or a common citizen do to at least slow down and to stop the damage to some extent that is happening to Hindus and to civilizational cause? Is there a practical action plan that we can adopt? And how do we win this civilization battle in the long run when we know that demography is destiny? Do you have an action plan? That would be wonderful to know if you have.
No, definitely. Definitely there's an action plan, but I'll tell you the amazing disconnect, and Dada has really put the finger on the pulse, you know, and it's, I'm amazed. Dada, are you an independent, were you an independent MLA or from आज तक कभी किसी कांग्रेस एमपी ने इतना कभी किया होगा क्रिटिसाइज गवर्नमेंट को? This is the difference. Please remember this and re-elect him, and I'm also removing my nota thing, and but I'll tell you the disconnect, and this is why Sai, when he says that when people come to power, what happens? I will ask you a question, and please raise your hands, and then I vouch for it that not a single BJP politician will ever raise the hand on this question. The question is, does terrorism have religion? Name one BJP minister, leave minister कार्यकर्ता, who will say openly that terrorism is. वो उल्टा, अरे हम तो बता रहे हैं आपको नाविका जी, राहुल जी, टेररिज्म का रिलीजन है ही नहीं. और यहाँ लोग डेटा पे डेटा कलेक्ट किए जा रहे हैं पागलों की तरह कि 31,000 टेरर अटैक्स हुए हैं based on Islamic principles since 9/11, and you are saying terrorism has no religion. But to come back to your question, which was, can Hindus do something? I think the government has to do. Hindus have elected it. But I have changed my view. There is a little bit of this anarchic कीड़ा that has gone into me ever since Supreme Court said on farm bills कि भाई वो कहाँ हैं जो कि pro farm bills हैं, वो तो हमें दिख ही नहीं रहे हैं. Basically, they wanted 86% of Indian farmers to come onto the streets, not till the land and produce farm produce, but they wanted those 86% farmers to come onto the Supreme Court and say, look, we want these farm laws. This is what our country has been reduced to by the judiciary. Ki those who are doing their work in far-flung areas around India, who are creating wealth, who are making produce, they have to leave all this, and Supreme Court wants, because it wants to see, it only sees the anti-farm bills. It wants to see the pro-farm bill protesters, so they have to come. But if be that as it may, I think Hindus must come onto the streets then. Use the Supreme Court's Brahmastra and say Hindu temples must be under the control of Hindus. That is the first thing. And I don't want to scare you with data because one of the most authoritative guys, the other is our mutual friend T.R. Ramesh. No one has worked more on this than these two gentlemen. Lakhs, not even lakhs of crores of money that is legitimately Hindu is being lost, is being gained by the government because the temples and their land is in the control of the government. The government is dictating how and preventing Hindus from running their own colleges, their institutions, their Vidyapeeths, everything that other religions are doing at breakneck speed in health, in education, in providing every amenity, down to, as he said, making lawyers and judges, who knows, maybe army people. But Hindus are being prevented. What are Hindus going to do? For the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, people like Sai and others have been crying, look, government has no business to control Hindu temples. What has happened? This government, your government, BJP government has controlled even more temples in the last 8 years than the Congress had. If it wants, it can overturn the overturning of the 1959 Supreme Court judgment that Congress overturned. BJP can overturn that overturn. I'm sorry, I'm getting a bit what's the word for it, inception here. But the whole point is, what are the Hindus going to do? They voted this government. This government is a Hindutva government. अब वो ही नहीं कर रही तो क्या सड़क पे आ जाओगे? But I don't want, because all of you are earning, doing money, creating wealth that anyway this government is taxing to run. अब आप वो सब छोड़ के सड़क पे आओगे? What can be worse than that? So, of course, Chef, there are issues that Hindus can tackle. But I think this seed of anarchism, unless it gets into the Hindus, which would be a tragedy, I don't think the Hindus' issues can ever be solved.
I think there's a simpler way forward. Don't release our temples. Declare yourself a Hindu state. You can't have it both ways. That's it. You choose what you want to do. पैसा चाहिए तो परिचय को बदलो. That's it. Otherwise, I don't see the point in filling your coffers. This is not a facetious statement. I'm making this very, very seriously. Because then we will have to confront the absolute worst of values inherited from the West, secularism. Then you'll have to confront that. And you'll have to call out the BS it is. And then you'll start talking about a lot of things. Now that's one. But what is it that we can do as Hindus? One, don't leave Bharat for California. Please. Kindly, please. गांव छोड़ दिए, शहर छोड़ दिया, भारत छोड़ दिया, तो बचा क्या? किसके लिए लड़ रहे? मेरे को समझ में नहीं आता है. वहां से क्या you will want to form a diaspora fighting for a country which has vacated the country? Kindly, please stay in Bharat. This is the way of the future. Shakti has traveled everywhere and has come back to Asia. It has finished its journey in the rest of the world. The history of the world is a movement of energy. Energy is finally coming back to its source. Kindly stay. If you're looking for perhaps being a part of the most interesting, exciting generation, notwithstanding the troubles and challenges ahead, this is the place to be. Bharat is the battleground and Bharat is the way of the future. I am not saying this for any other reason. शिवलिंगों का अपने आप बाहर आना अपने आप में कुछ संकेत है, if you're a believer. Idols which have been, I'm a hardcore believer. I hope that doesn't offend you.
Absolutely not. Absolutely.
Hardcore believer. इतने सारी मूर्तियां जो 400 साल 500 साल दबे पड़े थे वो बाहर निकल रहे हैं. The explosion of interest in Bharatiya Sanskriti is tremendous. The voices that are being produced. I am a low-grade hustler. Ignore me. Look at the number of Shastric voices coming out, trying to protect traditions, who don't get the kind of space and the social media position advantage that we get. So, these are signs. And Dharma believes in cosmic signs. I cannot ignore that. 3, संस्कृति को बचाने से पहले परिवार को बचाइए. जो आपके बच्चे हैं जो वोक बन रहे हैं उनको पकड़िए. Because the motto of the left is, you have power, we have your children. And they're investing in the future heavily. The rubbish from the United States has been refused by France, but India still doesn't have the guts to refuse it. I will never subscribe to gender-specific binary, non-binary pronouns in my life. I will never do this. This is internet karma. I'm saying this. I will never redact this particular position. As a Sanskriti that has dedicated temples for transgenders, which has celebrated in its own way, I don't need to learn your refuse. One, you don't need to teach us how to treat these people. They are our people. The worst of terms which are used to address them don't come from Hindi, they come from Urdu. Therefore, we have our own ways of, let's say, looking after our people. 3, at least at home, have a 3-tier system wherein the Matrabhasha finds some space. Please do. I will tell you the extent of my own coloniality. How seeped we are in English. 2 days ago, when I was actually trying to buy something on Amazon, for some weird reason, it switched to Hindi. It was such a clutter and irritating clutter in my head. And I said, what on earth is this? An Indian language is a clutter in your head? And a language that you're comfortable speaking in? And a language that you're comfortable conversing in? Because you see, speech is okay, but reading is important. Because then you won't forget the script. Now, you will remember, you will read. How many can write now in mother tongues? Thank you. I'm so grateful. Are. And force your native press to not simply transliterate English words in Marathi or Hindi. Computer ko computer mat bolna. I'll tell you why I'm so proud of Tamil language chauvinism. I'll say this. Let me just answer this question, and I hope I don't offend sentiments here. If I do, that's okay. The point is, the Dravidianists see Tamil Brahmins as Aryans. And we are castigated left, right, and center. Whereas all the prime literature has come from the Tamil Brahmanas. Subramanya Bharati, who they worship, is my distant relative. He is actually the damad of my family. And these are all, he is a cherut smoking Tamil Brahmin. So if you go to Nepal, they have traditions where they castigate Rama because ladki ko diya, dekho kya kar diya. In Bihar and other places, they won't give people their daughters in marriage to people coming from Uttar Pradesh and Koshal. There are certain traditions there because they carry the memory. Similarly, we say this about Subramanya Bharati. Dekho hamare ladki ke saath kya kar diya. Because the man never earned. He was a thinker. Cigar smoking thinker at home. Okay. Now the point is, retain your mother tongues. There is a reason why you have Ishtadev as a concept. You owe your duty to 3 sets of devatas. Your Kula Devata, because that protects your collective identity as a group and the traditions that go with it. Your Grama Devata, which is your guardian deity. Your Ishta Devata, you choose according to your nature. That's exactly why Dharma offers you this 108 baskets. Choose what you want or mix and match. And choose a deity according to that. And once you have chosen or subscribed to that, please make sure that at least once a week you dedicate in some form to that particular deity, because all this talk is useless because you have to match the other guy in his commitment to his deity. And that is something you must learn from them, no matter what. It's not wrong. He is wrong because his point of view is against us. And he has positioned himself as matter and antimatter. But our commitment is where we are fundamentally, let's say, it's a shaky wicket. So in a previous talk somewhere I said this, the principle is what I'd call the SIP principle. Spiritually fit, intellectually fit, and certainly get physically fit. Make one trip to Israel and you'll realize not one gentleman I saw there had a punch. Once I came back, I realized kuch na kuch to karna padega. I can't go like this. So each of these components are important because it makes a difference. One of the reasons that Guru Gobind Singh specifically had physical attributes for the Khalsa, especially the beard, is to invite and invoke fear. The Kada was a sign of metal and Kshatra. They still call the weapon, the art of learning weapons, in their own corrupted form, Shastra Vidya. It's nothing but Shastra Vidya. So my suggestions would be the following. Hinduism, as Rawatji said, unlike Islam, is rooted to a particular bhumi, which is why you pray as you worship to the bhumi as well. It's a consecration that happens with every ritual, so protect and stay, this is your land. Others can leave because it's not their motherland, this is our mata, you can't leave. 2, protect your children, your language, and we don't have the voluntary concept of zakat, fortunately so. 10% to to any organization that does service for dharma in some way. Hindu hai to bandhu hai is the bottom line. Thank you.
Dada,
I
you
will-
can, I'll sum up now. You can give the last, your remarks and the way forward from the
Okay,
podium.
surely, yes.
This has been a very, very interesting session to moderate, and thanks so much, Anand, Sai, and Dada, for giving your valuable time and amazing insights. I'm going to end with something that I heard from Sahana Vijaykumar. Sahana Vijaykumar is a Kannada novelist who has written a book called Kashmir, which is based on Kashmir and the reality of Kashmir. And she had an interaction in Pune last 2 weeks ago. And she said something that stayed with me for this long, and I want to end with that. She said, and we were talking, Sana and I were talking before the event, and I had said we were talking naturally about the recent beheadings. And I had said that, it's in Umesh Kole's case, particularly in Amravati, he was friends with the guy who betrayed him for 16 years, who he actually came for his funeral and cried also. So I was talking about that, and she said, why are you surprised with it? Do they not keep goats in their homes before their festivals? Do they not treat them like their children? Do they not feed them? Do they not give them a lot of love? And then they slit the throat and watch it bleed slowly. So she said after that, hum bhi to bakre hi hai na. That one sentence stayed with me, and I want to end with telling you that no, we are not goats. We are lions. And if we have forgotten that, it is time to remember that, and it is time to never ever forget that. Thank you. And now I request Dada to give his summing up address.
Before Dada does that, 30 seconds more. No, please, Dada. Because I cannot, I don't know, it's maybe manufacturing defect or an aid that I cannot end without quoting some verses. So, because Shefali talked about, friends, let me quote some verses so that you know what you're dealing with. Do not forget that disbelievers are allies of one another, 873. Do not make disbelievers guardians, 551. Do not marry the polytheists, i.e. Hindu women, unless they come to believe in Islam, 2:221. And those who disbelieve in our verses, we will drive them into a fire, 456. Fight against those who do not believe in Allah and who do not adopt Islam. Fight them until they give the jizya while they are humbled, 929. Polytheists are the worst of creatures, 98:6. Those who deny the Quran, their necks will be shackled, 40:70. No one has the right to be worshipped but Allah, 40:62. And finally, do not take disbelievers as friends unless they convert, and kill them if they refuse, 489. Thank you.
It has been a very long session. Already it's 8. So I will sum up in a very short speech. First, my thoughts on the last question. Yes, as a society, it is our civilizational duty to do many things as suggested by Anand and Sai. But what I think is that within the framework of our constitution, what we can do, just like there was an anomaly as far as the federal nature of our state is concerned. So 370 was a dangerous doctrine, because if Kashmir has a special status, Maharashtra will ask for it. So the whole federal structure was in danger of that doctrine. Other important thing which is also there in the constitution is UCC. So what we have to do, it's only a very small portion. All the criminal and civil law is same for everybody irrespective of the religion. But those personal laws, why they should go? We have to eliminate the religious identity in the civil society. In that sense, you can have your religion, but as far as the civil society is concerned, all are equal. Those laws are equal. I know there is a heated debate about it. But if we want to start integration of the society, so we have to take this major step. Another thing, this dangerous doctrine of minority status, it is affecting Hindu society in a very negative way. It is not only giving advantages, privileges, and concessions to minority which the majority doesn't have. Apart from that, because of the lure of that status, or because of difficulty, like Ramakrishna Mission some years ago, they went to the court, they said, we are not Hindu. The Jains got the minority status. Now the Lingayats are demanding. So this is disintegrating the Hindu society. So we have to do what is most urgent. And that can be done through our parliament, through government. We have to raise an effective action plan. Today's conference was planned with this specific purpose, that we will not remain in the problem mode. I say, rote rote baitho, rote aaye, dhote aaye. We should come up in a solution mode, that specific, some kind of advocacy, some key things, if done properly, urgently and effectively, definitely there will be a sea change. There has been a change, no doubt about that. But we are in the right direction, but we have to take the right speed. So that is more important. Another last point I would like to say, an American author, Susan Dunn, she has written a book about the American and the French Revolution. The name is Light and the Lightning. She has compared both. The basic idea is that revolutions are like lightning in the sky, spectacular. They are very attractive. You take French Revolution, such great values for which that revolution happened. But what was the outcome? Napoleon. The Russian Revolution, they wanted to create an equitable society. What was the outcome? The same. In America, though there was no drastic revolutionary change, it was basically first for the white men, not also the women. But gradually that society, they had a stability, and that through that stability grew a very strong nation. I think Susan Dunn has not read about India. In 1947 and later in 1950, at one go, this nation became a nation of equal people. It's a great thing. It's a great thing to be proud about. We have survived. I don't think in our history, our civilization was a civilization nation. Yes, there have been empires, but first time we are all in a very unique mode. This is a great experiment. And India can survive only through democracy. There is no other way we can survive. The last thing is, as truth about what Ambedkar ji said, that we are individuals, not a society. In Marathi, I always say, आमची गावकी एक आहे, आमचा प्रोजेक्ट आहे भावकी एक करण्याचा. That means we belong to a village. So that is a geographical unit. But bhavki, that means we should be like a bandhu, as you said. But that bandhu bhav, how can that happen in a society which Ambedkar described is a very multi-storied society, but there is no staircase. So basically, we have to build these bridges among ourselves, where there are differences, many types of differences, but no differences can become the basis of discrimination. That should be the basic principle of building our society where we honor everybody. If we can do that, others who are trying to find fissures in us, Brahman, Brahmanetar, Savarna, Dalit, so these kind of, we have to challenge this, but not only academically, our own active social program, our behavior in our individual life, if we can change that, I'm a hopeful person. We have come a very long way. We have achieved much. And therefore, we should create an action plan. And you are all participants. We would like your inputs. You can send them to Shefali ji, and definitely we will meet again. Thank you.
धन्यवाद दादा। अब तक इस कार्यक्रम में जो चर्चा हुई है, जो विचार रखे गए हैं, अब मुझे नहीं लगता कि हमारे मन में कोई द्विधा या कोई प्रश्न होंगे। ये सारा प्रोग्राम फेसबुक और यूट्यूब पे लाइव चल रहा है, वहाँ पे रिकॉर्ड हुआ है, हम अपने कन्वीनियंस से कभी भी देख सकते हैं। मैं एक सूचना है, कार्यक्रम ख़त्म होने के बाद यहाँ पे लेफ़्ट साइड में एक बुक स्टॉल लगाया है, वहाँ पे काफ़ी सारे पुस्तकें हैं, आप वहाँ पे खरीद सकते हैं। अब इसके बाद आभार प्रदर्शन होगा और उसके बाद सामूहिक राष्ट्रगान से कार्यक्रम का समापन होगा। मैं तुषार जी दामगुड़े इनसे निवेदन करता हूँ कि कृपया आभार प्रदर्शन करें।
थैंक यू भरत जी। Namaskar all. To make a program like this a success, there are many people who have been working for weeks tirelessly. It's my pleasure to acknowledge their valuable efforts. I'm grateful to our guest speakers who did take away some time from their active schedule to make their invaluable deliberations in this conference. To be particular, I extend my heartfelt feelings of gratitude to Mr. Sai Deepak, Mr. Anand Rangnathan. I am thankful to Pradeep Rawat to enlighten us with his thoughts. I also extend my gratitude to Srimati Shefali Vaidya for moderating the question-answer session. I would like to thank Vivek Vichar Manch and Bharat Vikas Parishad, Shivaji Nagar Shakha, who brought us this wonderful series of lectures. I am thankful to the host, Progressive Education Society, for the venue and other arrangements. I thank the illustrious audience for their presence and participation. Lastly, please forgive us if we have forgotten to mention any name. Thank you.
आप सभी से निवेदन है कि कृपया सामूहिक राष्ट्रगान के लिए खड़े हो जाइए। राष्ट्रगान शुरू करेंगे। जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंग, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंग, तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मागे, गाहे तव जय गाथा। जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे। भारत माता की जय, भारत माता की वंदे वंदे।